Hey guys, tonight we were taking a soft, spooky tumble into the eeriest Tupperware container of history. Halloween in Victorian times. Yes, Victorian Halloween. A season of candlelit flirting, fortune-telling and carving root vegetables, because pumpkins apparently hadn't made it across the Atlantic yet. Imagine trying to impress someone while holding a hollowed-out turnip that smells like sadness. That's the vibe. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this brand of historical nonsense narrated directly into your ears. If you're feeling bold, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and how close it is to your bedtime. It's always 2:43 a.m. for someone, and that someone is probably you. Now, dim the lights. Turn on a fan for that shimmering white noise ambience. Maybe grab a blanket and hide your feet just in case a Victorian spirit tries to play footsie. Let S slow down and ask the important questions. Did Victorians really spend their Halloween trying to psychically locate their future spouse with fruit? Was bobbing for apples basically Tinder with more drowning potential? Why were fortunes told in dark hallways involving mirrors? Were the ghosts shy or just bad conversationalists? How exactly do you flirt while wearing 37 layers of tightly laced fabric? And did anyone ever pass out mid-romance? Did Queen Victoria ever host a party where someone tripped over a turnip lantern and fell directly into destiny? And now congratulations. You've just woken up in the 1880s on Halloween night. You're wearing something that feels like a corset even if you are absolutely certain you didn't put one on. Your hair is aggressively curled. Someone hands you a bowl of nuts and tells you it's time to determine whether your marriage will be blissful or mildly disappointing. Good luck. You step outside and are immediately greeted by a crisp October breeze that smells like chimney soot and repressed emotion. Leaves scuttle along cobblestones, sounding suspiciously like tiny ghosts practicing tap dancing. You pull your shawl tight and pretend this is cozy instead of cold. The night is dim, lit mostly by gas lamps struggling to do their job, like interns who realized on day one that they chose the wrong career path. Their yellow glow flickers against rows of tall brick townhomes draped in shadows, each house looking as though it could burst into poetry or collapse into soot at any moment. You stand there, feeling that delightful, confusing sensation of being both chilled and aggressively overdressed. The Victorians did layers the way modern people do subscriptions. Far too many, none of which you can easily cancel. Let us talk about the street beneath your boots. The cobblestones are shiny with dew or possibly spilled tea or, if you're very unlucky, something that once belonged to a horse. Every step makes a clacking sound that echoes faintly in this autumn air, which feels crisp but also suspiciously judgmental. Somewhere down the road, a cat yowls in a tone that strongly suggests it is either possessed or unimpressed. Hard to tell in Victorian England. A gust of wind hits you square in the face, bringing with it hints of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, along with the unmistakable smell of burning coal. It's like breathing in a delicious seasonal candle that also wants to give you mild lung damage. In the distance, the distant hum of horse-drawn carriages rolls through the streets like the Victorian equivalent of late-night traffic. Slow, clunky, and full of people whose emotional therapy options do not yet exist. Halloween in the Victorian world isn't the neon orange playground it is now. There are no inflatable skeletons or motion-activated ghosts that yell boo like they were born with stage fright. Instead, the decorations are natural, dried flowers hanging like faded memories, bundles of herbs dangling near doorways, and lanterns carved from turnips. Yes, turnips. The jack-o'-lanterne's gritty, agriculturally depressed cousin. You'll see their eerie little faces flickering from stoops, their expressions stuck somewhere between mischievous and mildly offended. As you walk, your boots thud against the stones in a strong, steady rhythm like your heart is trying to keep pace with the ghostly waltz echoing from some unseen corner. You pause at the sound of hushed laughter drifting from a row house window. Inside, silhouettes move, young Victorians gathering for a night of fortune-telling and profoundly awkward flirting. You briefly consider knocking, but your modern anxiety kicks in, reminding you of that time you tried to enter a stranger's Zoom meeting because you typed the ID wrong. A wagon rumbles by, its wheels creaking like arthritic bones, carrying hay and a stack of pumpkins. Not turnips, actual pumpkins. Imported. The Victorians, ever eager to be fashionable, pay absurd amounts for the privilege of carving them. This is kind of like spending 17 on oat milk because it's trendy. You wonder who will end up with the most Instagrammable vegetables, though they don't have Instagram, yet only gossip and an alarming love of diaries. Let's take a moment to appreciate the fog, which drifts in like a confused guest at an office party who isn't as sure if they are welcome. It swirls around your ankles, then rises, wrapping the world in a pale hush. The silhouettes of gas lamps blur, the windows glow vaguely, and you start to understand why ghosts were such a big thing. Everyone was basically living inside a horror movie filter 24/7. If your neighbour sneezed too loudly, you'd assume a demon had entered town. Your mind drifts toward practical matters, like whether you will ever feel warmth again. The shawl around your shoulders provides emotional support but absolutely no insulation. Your breath appears in little clouds, tiny puffs of proof that you are alive, even though you are increasingly convinced you're becoming a Victorian popsicle. You clutch the fabric tighter and tell yourself that it's all fine, because surely people survived nights like this. Right? A distant church bell tolls. It sounds lazy, as though it would rather be sleeping. The sound rolls through the fog, hugging the streets, reminding you that time is passing. It also gently suggests, without saying it out loud, that you could have stayed home by the fire, but instead you chose to take a night walk in a century without Uber or fleece-lined sweatpants. Choices were made. You notice someone walking ahead of you, a figure wearing a dark, heavy coat and carrying a lantern. The person doesn't look back, but you sense they know you're there. Not in a creepy way, more in a we're both living the fall aesthetic way. You follow at a respectful distance, letting their footsteps guide you toward a market square flickering with lantern light and soft chatter. When you arrive, you see vendors selling hot drinks, nuts, and little charms promising good fortune. Everyone is bundled, cheeks rosy from the cold, and you, despite your discomfort, feel a strange contentment, because amid the fog, the flickering lanterns, and the root vegetable decor, there is magic here, awkward, romantic, slightly coal-scented magic. It's cold, it's weird, it's Victorian Halloween, and you're just getting started. Victorian Halloween fashion is less sexy nurse and more sexy orthopedic support garment. You wriggle into layers of wool, linen, and a moral code. Everything is beautiful but also itchy, which is basically the Victorian aesthetic. Let us talk logistics. Getting dressed tonight is not a cute 5-minute process the way you do now, where you stare at your closet for 20 minutes, then put on the same sweatpants you wore yesterday. No. Victorian clothing is a full-contact, multi-stage adventure involving strings, hooks, ribbons, questionable structural engineering, and 1 or 2 emotional breakdowns. It's like assembling IKEA furniture, except the instructions are written in size and shame. First, there's the chemise, essentially a long cotton t-shirt that says, "We are not showing skin. We are preserving mystery." Then comes the corset, a garment invented by someone who wanted people to look exquisite while feeling mildly compressed. You slip into it too politely, because you have no idea what you're doing. Then someone else tightens the laces until your lungs negotiate for better working conditions. It is like being hugged by a Victorian ghost who doesn't understand personal space. On top of that goes the petticoat, then another petticoat, then a petticoat that might secretly be holding a grudge. Petticoats are like Pringles. Once you start, you just keep adding them until you question your life choices. By the third one, you begin to suspect the Victorians invented these layers not for style, but as insulation against the haunting chill of unresolved colonial guilt. Now, if you're dressing masculine tonight, you aren't spared either. You put on a shirt with a collar so stiff it could slice bread. A waistcoat follows, then a jacket so structured it feels as though you've joined an exclusive club where the only membership requirement is discomfort. Trousers are tailored and snug, and boots are polished within an inch of their life. You look sharp, but the kind of sharp that might collapse if you breathe too deeply. The overall sensation is one of elegance, claustrophobia, and static electricity. Every brush of wool against wool threatens to ignite you like a poorly planned chemistry experiment. You are hot, cold, itchy, fashionable, and slightly incapable of bending at the waist. The year is 1880 something, and everyone is committed to beauty as long as it hurts a little. Let us move to accessories, because the Victorians adored accessorizing almost as much as they adored not smiling in photographs. Gloves are required because heaven forbid your hands be naked. These gloves are made from fine leather or silk, and they button dramatically at the wrist. Once they are on, you try to do anything, pick up a coin, hold a drink, find your self-respect, and suddenly life becomes a slow-motion puppet show. There is also a hat. It is enormous. Or tiny. Victorians didn't heed due moderation. For women, hats might have birds, ribbons, lace, and enough feathers to upset a small flock of geese. For men, a top hat stands tall enough to signal your presence from 2 streets away. You look respectable, but also slightly like a stylish chimney. The colours of your outfit depend on your social class and your appetite for drama. Wealthy folks wear deep jewel tones, burgundy, emerald, navy, while everyone else wears various shades of brown that say, "Yes, I am trying." Black is always fashionable, especially during mourning, which practically everyone is in for decades because the Victorians never got over anything. Speaking of mourning, it's possible you're wearing a lock of someone's hair woven into jewellery. This is sentimental, not creepy allegedly. You try not to think about it. Instead, you admire the craftsmanship and pretend you're not wearing a bracelet made of your Aunt Mildred-esque curls. Let's not forget the scent. You dab on some perfume, generally floral or spice-based, hoping to mask the faint aroma of coal smoke and society's expectations. Perfume bottles are small artworks, intricate and delicate, designed to be admired more than used. One drop behind the ear, another on your wrist, and suddenly you smell like you're auditioning to be a rose that survived a house fire. By the time you are fully dressed, you feel regal, prepared, and slightly dizzy. You attempt a graceful step toward the door, but your skirt, or dignity, gets caught on something. You make adjustments. You persevere. Because tonight is Halloween, and the Victorians treat this night with flair and superstition, and you're here to look stunning and possibly see your future spouse in a mirror. No pressure. Outside, the cool air meets your overheated, overly layered body with all the subtlety of a slap. You sigh. The layers trap heat like a Victorian sauna, but removing clothing in public is scandalous, punishable by raised eyebrows and social ostracism. So you endure just like the millions of other itchy people. As you walk the streets, rustling like an irritated duvet, you begin to appreciate the sheer commitment of Victorian fashion. Every person you pass looks like they're heading to either a funeral, a wedding, or a séance. sometimes all three. The clothes signal status, propriety, and the tragic lack of stretch fabrics. And yet, somewhere beneath the weight of brocade and expectation, you feel fabulous, dramatic, like you've stepped into an old painting where every shadow hides a story and every pleat hides snacks, if you planned ahead. Though your ribs are squeezing like they were writing a love letter to your spine, you hold your head high. Because in the Victorian era, suffering is stylish, and tonight you are an icon. Someone hands you a turnip and a knife, this is apparently normal. Carving it is like fighting a root vegetable that owes you money. The final result looks less festive and more like a shriveled gremlin, but everyone politely calls it charming. The turnip sits in your palm, small, stubborn, and oddly judgmental. You roll it, around like you're trying to intimidate it, but it's clear who's in charge. This thing once survived rocky British soil, rainless summers, and probably an argument with a goat. You're wearing 13 layers of wool and already questioning your upper body strength. The turnip knows. Let's go back for a second. Pumpkins aren't really common here yet. They exist somewhere, but most households simply can't get them. In North America, pumpkins are abundant, festive, and easy to carve. In Victorian Britain, they are imported treasures, viewed the same way you view truffles or a functioning printer. So the humble turnip becomes the Halloween lantern of choice not because it's ideal, but because it's available, and nobody wants to whittle a potato. You sit at a table beside other hopeful carvers, candles flicker, shadows waver, and every person has that expression of, this is going to be fine, right before regretting everything. You take the first stab, expecting buttery pumpkin softness. Instead, your knife rebounds. This vegetable is the bowling ball of the produce aisle. You grip the blade harder, trying again, and realizing immediately that Victorian carving is an arm workout no one asked for. As you hack, scrape, and mutter, tiny shavings of turnip fly everywhere. You spot a piece landing in your neighbour's teacup. She pretends not to notice. The Victorians are polite like that, no matter the chaos. Everyone smiles, nods, and silently questions their existence. Eventually you remove a chunk of the interior, gaze into its hollow form and think, yes, this definitely resembles a small demon who skipped therapy. Now it is time for the face. Modern pumpkin carving templates, those fancy silhouettes of cats, bats, or complicated patterns do not exist. You're freestyling with a blade and blind optimism. 2 little triangles for eyes, a jagged slit for a mouth, and suddenly you've summoned a creature who looks like it's about to ask you to buy essential oils. Your neighbour proudly displays her turnip, which inexplicably looks like it's judging everyone for having student loans. Another person reveals a grotesque masterpiece half-goblin, half-boiled potato complete with a sideways smile that says it knows your secrets. There is applause. There is confusion. Someone faints. This is all part of the fun. Let us talk scent. Freshly carved pumpkins smell clean, slightly sweet. Turnips, on the other hand, smell like wet socks who've recently made poor choices. When you place a candle inside, that earthy funk warms and multiplies. The aroma wafts across the room in waves of "did something just die?" Followed by "no, no, this is festive." You breathe through your mouth and try not to cry. At least the lighting is atmospheric. When the candles flicker within their turnip shells, the room transforms into a pocket-sized haunted house. The shadows make each carved face dance with eerie, mischievous grins. You watch the tiny flames waver, projecting ghostly movement across walls already covered in patterned wallpaper and questionable taxidermy. It is spooky, charming, and exactly the kind of nightmare fuel that Victorians adored. Let us step outside. A row of these vegetable lanterns line the street, glaring with aggressive pep. They sit on stoops like small guardians guarding absolutely nothing. Each one looks like it's seen too much. In Ireland and Scotland, stories say these turnip lanterns were carved to ward off spirits, particularly Stingy Jack, a man so troublesome that both heaven and hell kicked him out. Now he roams the countryside, trapped with only a glowing ember inside a carved turnip. You glance at your own shriveled gremlin and whisper, "Buddy, same." While the myth travelled to North America and switched to pumpkins for convenience, big, bright, soft pumpkins, Victorians kept their turnips. Tradition, efficiency, painful wrists. Neighbours glance at your lantern and nod approvingly, even though you can tell it resembles an angry thumb. You say thank you, because social expectations prevent anyone from admitting that this entire display smells like produce gone morally wrong. Sometimes, pranks involve switching turnip lanterns around in the dark. You spend 15 minutes searching for yours only to realise you've accidentally adopted someone else. S, which has a face so menacing it looks like it collects unpaid debts. You consider keeping it. It has character. Also, it seems capable of violence, good for warding off both evil spirits and chatty neighbours. Let us pause to appreciate the irony. People in the 21st century spend October buying pumpkin spice everything and crafting glamorous Instagram-ready gourds. Meanwhile, Victorians used knives, candle stubs, and whichever root vegetable they didn't plan to eat for supper. Your hands are raw, the turnip juice is stinging, and there is a non-zero chance you've accidentally summoned something unholy. But as the street fills with these flickering, wonky faces, you feel a strange, delightful magic. The air is crisp, children run by, laughing. Old stories swirl with the fog, and your terrible vegetable friend shines bravely, lighting the path ahead. It might not be pretty, but it's yours and at least it's trying. And honestly, its smile, even if crooked, reminds you that Halloween has always been a little messy, a little creepy, and a lot handmade. Your turnip gremlin fits right in. Victorians believed Halloween was prime time for determining if you'd ever find love or settle for someone who smelled tolerably of coal dust. Tonight is your big chance to find out if romance awaits or if you should commit to becoming a professional cat collector. You follow the smoky glow of candlelight into a parlor so stuffed with fabric, lace, and wallpaper that the air feels upholstered. The room seems designed by someone who thought, yes, but what if every surface had a different floral pattern? A group has already gathered, wide-eyed, hopeful, and extremely invested in discovering their romantic future using produce and superstition. Everyone is whispering as though God is asleep in the next room. To Victorians, Halloween isn't just an excuse to eat candy. There's no Snickers bar in sight, only nuts and mild emotional terror. Instead, it is the one night the veil between worlds is thin, when ghosts might whisper secrets, and your love life is allegedly decipherable via fruit. Tonight, destiny arrives not via dating apps, but via damp apples and an underpaid candle. Someone ushers you into a seat as if you're about to receive a reading from a glamorous celebrity psychic. In reality, your psychic is an older relative who has decided she is spiritually gifted because she once dreamed of bread before her oven exploded. She hands you a bowl containing apples, hazelnuts, and what might be a pebble if you squint. The rules? Vague. The confidence? Absolute. Let us start with apples. Apples are apparently the ultimate Victorian love detector. You're instructed to peel one in a single long strip. If you can toss the peel over your shoulder and it lands in a shape resembling a letter, that is the initial of your future spouse. You begin peeling with the intense precision of someone performing heart surgery. The strip breaks immediately. According to custom, this either means try again or no one, absolutely no one is coming. You try again, just in case the universe believes it best of three. This time the peel survives. You spin, toss and watch it flop into something between the letter J and a very depressed sock. A girl nearby gasps and insists it's clearly a J. A roaming uncle claims it as an R. You decide it is shaped like a crooked ampersand and expect nothing. Next, someone thrust hazelnuts into your hand. The game. Place 2 nuts side by side on the hearth. If they burn quietly together, your relationship will be calm and steady. If they pop violently apart, you are doomed to bicker until death or divorce, whichever shows up first. You place them with reverence. They sizzle, then hop away from one another like they've just remembered they're allergic to commitment. The room responds with sympathetic nodding. You accept that you might one day marry someone and then quickly regret it. Tradition. Then comes the mirror test. You're guided into a dark hallway holding a candle that definitely wasn't safety tested. They tell you to walk backward toward the glass until the flickering light reveals the face of your true love or the corpse-like grin of death. Which seems rude. You comply, moving slowly as your candle paints gloomy shadows on the wall. You reach the mirror. You stare. Instead of a mysterious stranger, you glimpse your own tired reflection, squinting and slightly sweaty. Apparently your future spouse is you? Bold choice. Someone claps in excitement anyway. Victorians love an omen, even if the omen is your sweaty face staring back in disappointment. Another game appears. You are handed a bowl of water with floating nutshells, each representing a potential lover. If a shell drifts toward the candle, it foretells marriage. If it sinks or spins wildly, heartbreak awaits. Yours circles dramatically like it is rehearsing for Swan Lake, then bumps the candle with a needy thunk. Does that mean marriage? Or is it just clumsy? Everyone nods as if the answer is obvious. The more of these rituals you endure, the more you realize the Victorians are desperate for answers. They live in a world without Google, therapists, or even proper pizza. Their emotional support system is nature, firelight, and an unreasonable amount of peeling. They crave certainty about love, about life, about whether their crush will ever stop coughing ominously. In another corner of the room, a girl ties 9 knots in a piece of yarn, whispering her beloved S name at each knot. She places it beneath her pillow, hopeful for a dream revealing her future husband. You admire her dedication. You also admire that she has enough prospects to whisper 9 names. You're handed yet another object this time, a candle stub in one hand and a slice of cake in the other. Inside the cake might be a charm predicting your fate. A thimble means spinsterhood, a ring means marriage, a coin means wealth. You take a bite, hoping not to chip a tooth on destiny. Instead, you find nothing, which means your future is still open. Or you just got a dud slice. Same difference. Throughout this, everyone flits between excitement and existential dread. Men fidget, women giggle. Someone sighs deeply after her apple peel makes the shape of an X, the universal sign for maybe Dante. You watch as one girl swoons dramatically, having seen her own reflection and mistaken it for a ghost. Drama loves company. There is comfort here, though. Beneath all the superstition and root-based dating advice, you sense a shared longing, the desire to know what is ahead. Will you love? Will you be loved? Will he at least bathe sometimes? As the night grows deeper and the candle wax runs low, you realize that certainly is not the point. The rituals are about hope small, flickering, ridiculous hope, and tonight, that S enough. You look at your oddly shaped apple peel one last time. Maybe it is a J, or maybe it's just a fruit ribbon telling you to relax. Either way, you pocket it like a promise and move toward whatever comes next. They tell you it is a harmless game. Then they push your face into a basin of cold water to snag apples with only your teeth. This is supposed to predict marriage prospects, but realistically, it just predicts a headache and wet bangs. You kneel before the basin like you're about to confess your sins to a bucket. It is filled with icy water fresh from the pump out back and floats a handful of apples, each one allegedly representing potential romance. They bob gently, looking innocent, as if they aren't about to be used as instruments of soggy humiliation. A small crowd gathers. They clap softly, which is both supportive and unsettling, as though you're a baby learning to walk or a Victorian chimney sweep attempting emotional honesty. Someone holds a candle too close to the water, creating dramatic lighting that suggests an interrogation is about to begin. You lean forward. The first touch of water to your cheeks is alarmingly cold enough to make you question whether this is Halloween or cryotherapy. The goal is simple. Bite an apple, claim your fortune. The execution is less simple. The apples keep running away from you like they know you haven't done laundry in 2 weeks. The basin isn't like the cute apple bobbing tubs of today. It is metal, heavy and cold, and if you bonk your nose, it echoes like a gong announcing your failure. Victorians don to help. They stand around saying things like, "Go on, it is good luck," while offering 0 practical tips. It is like being told to find love on reality TV but without the tropical scenery and sponsored sunblock. You attempt your first plunge. Your teeth snap at an apple, but slip off the smooth surface like a hamster trying to ice skate. Water floods your ears. You briefly consider whether drowning is a viable exit strategy, but someone pulls you upright before you can commit. Your bangs are now pasted to your forehead in a style called cold despair. They cheer. They do not acknowledge the trauma. Let us talk symbolism. Apple bobbing is supposed to predict your romantic success. Catch an apple fast and you'll find a partner quickly. Struggle and you may have to wait. Fail entirely, and congratulations, you are destined to become the village eccentric feeding biscuits to pigeons every morning. Victorians call that freedom. You call it a hobby. Someone nudges an apple close with a stick, which is cheating, but everyone pretends not to notice. You plunge again. This time, an apple touches your lips, victory, but slips away like commitment in your early 20s. You come up sputtering, mouth tasting faintly of cold water and regret. Your friends applaud. You glare. A second attempt. You determine a strategy. Trap an apple against the side of the basin. Perfect. You line up, sink your face, and wham, your forehead hits metal. Stars dance behind your eyelids. The apple escapes. The crowd murmurs sympathetically, but you sense laughter behind their gloves. It's fine. You're fine. You just might have a concussion. Meanwhile, others bob gracefully. A nearby girl snags an apple immediately, emerging with triumphant hair and a smug glow. According to superstition, she'll be married within a year. You suspect she practices in private, perhaps obsessively. She smiles as if her destiny is bliss and yours is mild hypothermia. Someone suggests you try again. You consider decline, but peer pressure is strong in this century, so you dive once more. This time, you don't overthink it, you just go for the fruit. The apple bounces against your teeth, and by some miracle of physics, you clamp down. You lift your head triumphantly, water streaming from your nose and chin like a victorious sea creature. The crowd erupts in polite, restrained Victorian excitement, meaning they nod vigorously. What does this mean? According to the rules, success equals romantic destiny. But what kind of destiny? Will your future spouse have a heart of gold, a reasonable bathing schedule, a steady job at the factory that doesn't involve mysterious lung damage? No one explains. They simply hand you a towel, a thin, disappointing scrap of fabric that dries nothing, and gesture toward a fireplace so you can warm your damp soul. While you attempt to regain dignity, someone explains the origins of this tradition. It is linked to ancient Celtic rituals and later Roman customs tied to Pomona, goddess of fruit and orchards. Over time, bobbing for apples became a matchmaking game, an innocent-seeming test meant to reveal who among the unmarried youth was agile, lucky, and possessed of strong jaw muscles. You are now apparently part of a long heritage of people dunking themselves in cold water to predict romance. Beautiful. Still dripping, you watch others flail. A boy gets water up his nose and staggers away, sniffling heroically. A girl nearly falls into the basin entirely, saved only by the quick reflexes of a friend who grabs her corset laces. The crowd applauds, as though bodily mishap is an expected and preferred part of the evening's entertainment. Despite the chaos, there is an undeniable charm to this Victorian nonsense. It's ridiculous, yes, but that's the point. Underneath the silliness is the yearning to know what comes next. The hope that love is out there, bobbing on the surface, waiting to be caught if you're brave enough to dunk your head into cold water while strangers judge your technique. Eventually the apples are gone, the basin emptied. Your bangs never recover. The game ends, leaving you chilly, slightly dazed, and oddly optimistic. Maybe the Victorians are onto something. You did catch an apple. Maybe romance is on the way. Or maybe it just means you want to die alone with at least one apple to keep you company. Either way, at least you didn't drown. You're instructed to stare into a mirror by candlelight. Supposedly, you'll glimpse your future love. Instead, you see your own tired reflection and wonder if the universe is trolling you. A servant ushers you down a narrow hallway that looks like the set of a horror movie filmed entirely in wallpaper. The floral patterns close in from every direction, as if the roses are whispering, "Good luck, sweetheart." Your candle flickers in your hand, trembling possibly from the draft, possibly from fear, definitely from you being cold and underfed. This ritual is simple in theory. Gaze into a mirror at midnight, candle in hand, and the face of your future spouse will appear behind you. The Victorians love drama, especially the kind that involves possible psychic terror. They invented Gothic literature after all. Being scared for fun was essentially a national pastime, just behind courtship, embroidery, and politely not talking about your feelings. You approach the mirror. It's tall, ornate, and slightly warped, like it's been listening to everyone's secrets and feels weird about it. The gold frame curls in swirls and leaves, making it resemble a portal into a more fashionable dimension. It's just you and this mirror, and your candle, and every choice that brought you here. You stand before it and stare. The room around you goes quiet, too quiet. Behind you, someone blows out a lamp to enhance the atmosphere. Victorian vibes intensify. Somewhere, a baby cries at the distance, or maybe it's just your soul. The flame dances, casting shaky shadows on the glass. You stare into your own eyes, hoping someone else will show up. A mysterious lover, a handsome stranger, even a ghost accountant who wants to do your taxes would be fine. But the mirror refuses to cooperate. It offers only you slightly pale, slightly exhausted, slightly done. You blink. Nothing. You lean in. Still nothing. Your reflection looks back at you as if wondering why you signed up for this. You're starting to think the universe is pranking you. Victorian Tinder is not going well. Let's talk logistics. This ritual comes from the belief that Halloween thins the veil between the living and the dead, and apparently the veil between you and your dating future. Young people use it to determine if they'll find love, or perhaps whether they should learn to knit 11 cats matching sweaters. The idea is that your intended will appear over your shoulder like a nightmare version of a wedding photo. You steady your candle, hoping the flame will help your future spouse materialize. A draft hits, the flame sputters, and your reflection distorts. For a heartbeat, you think you see someone else, but no. It's just your hair doing something weird. You try again. This time you whisper, "Hello," because maybe the spirit realm is shy. No reply. You try flirting. "Hey," but realize you're essentially whispering to yourself. Victorian dating is confusing. Suddenly someone coughs behind you. You shriek. They apologize. It's just a distant cousin passing by, presumably on their way to another fortune-telling game that involves yarn and anxiety. You glare and go back to your mirror. At this point, you try tricks. You angle. A candle. You close one eye. You hum a song. Nothing. The mirror remains as stubborn as your uncle during political discussions. Your future spouse is either running late or ignoring you, which, to be fair, is great practice for marriage. Then something shifts. It could be the reflection of the candle. It could be the wallpaper having an identity crisis. But you swear you see a faint outline behind you, tall, shadowy, maybe wearing a top hat. You gasp, heart racing. You turn around. There's no one there. Of course. You return to the mirror and stare harder. The candle burns low. The shadows seem deeper, layered with possibility. The idea that the supernatural might be in play feels suddenly plausible. The Victorians were obsessed with spiritualism seances, mediums, ghost photography. They genuinely believed the dead could send messages through parlors and telegraphs. They also believed hair jewelry was romantic, a complicated era. Your candle flickers one more time. In the wavering light, you think you see it, a hint of a face beside your own. Not fully formed, just an impression. A curve of cheekbone, a suggestion of eyes. You gasp, leaning closer, and it's gone. What remains is your reflection, slightly distorted by melted wax on the glass. You sigh. The universe remains vague. Romance remains elusive. Victorians take this very seriously. A girl near you claims she saw a handsome soldier with strong arms and a tragic past. Her friend swoons, already planning the wedding. Another insists she saw no one, meaning she is destined to die alone. People pat her shoulder sympathetically, but no one disputes it. Harsh. You, meanwhile, accept ambiguity. Love is complicated. Sometimes the mirror shows your future spouse. Sometimes it shows you needing moisturizer. Fate is fickle tonight. The ritual ends when your candle gutters out, leaving you in brief darkness. A chill runs down your spine, not because of ghosts, but because Victorian houses are inexplicably drafty. Someone relights a lamp. This spell breaks. The hallway returns to normal, just wallpaper and anxiety. Was the ritual a success? Hard to say. You didn't see a face. You didn't see doom. You saw yourself. Maybe that's the blessing. Maybe the mirror is encouraging you to love who you already are. Or maybe the mirror is broken. Hard to tell. You brush back your hair and step away. Behind you, another hopeful steps toward the glass, clutching a candle like a lifeline. The next romantic dreamer. The next victim of moist hallway fortune-telling. You walk away, unsure of your future but slightly amused. Because if love is meant to arrive through a mirror, it can probably find you elsewhere too. Preferably somewhere with better lighting. A wealthy acquaintance has invited half the neighborhood into their candle-packed mansion. The hostess smiles serenely, even though she hasn't sat down since 1849. She urges you to mingle and predict your future before dessert. She greets you at the door like a benevolent monarch whose primary currency is politeness and low-grade sleep deprivation. Her gown is the size of a small greenhouse, shimmering with beadwork and genteel exhaustion. You suspect her corset is the only thing holding her upright and maybe sheer social duty, which in the Victorian era is stronger than caffeine, therapy, or hope. You step into the foyer, immediately blinded by chandeliers and candle flames that appear to defy both space and building safety codes. Wax drips decoratively onto every available surface. The Victorian Fire Department is an enthusiastic but mostly symbolic institution, so the sheer number of combustible fabrics in one place is, how do we say this, exciting. The hostess takes your hand and tells you how wonderful it is that you could attend, even though you know she would be said that if you were a raccoon that wandered in with a turnip. Her voice carries the energy of someone who's been preparing for this event since the Crimean War. She gestures to the grand staircase, the ballroom, the conservatory full of seasonal gourds that look like someone attempted interior design using only vegetables and anxiety. Servants glide past, balancing trays of mysterious punch, candied nuts, and porcelain teacups that are too delicate to actually use. Somewhere in the house, a string quartet plays a soft tune that is both festive and vaguely ominous, like music from a haunted dollhouse built by an enthusiast with too much disposable income. The hostess informs you that, before dessert, it is your solemn duty to tell the future using apples, mirrors, or sheer desperation. She says this casually, as though she is asking you to pass the salt. You nod obediently, because this is the Victorian era, where refusing an invitation, especially to predict marriage outcomes, is like declaring emotional bankruptcy in public. She sweeps you into the drawing room, where every surface is upholstered within an inch of its life. Lace curtains drape from every window. Portraits of stern ancestors stare down, silently judging your posture. On a table nearby sits a deliciously absurd display of seasonal decorations, turnip lanterns carved into faces that suggest both whimsy and mild hostility. The hostess flutters beside you, pointing out eligible individuals around the room. There's a young man near the pianoforte who looks nervous enough to faint. A pair of sisters huddle near a fireplace, sipping punch and whispering. You catch snippets, ghosts, omens, possibly a scandal involving rhubarb. Victorian gossip is incredibly nutritious. Let's talk about the hostess again. She's the emotional spine of the evening. She has personally approved every candle, every ribbon, every moderately disturbing parlor game. She guides you through the evening like a cruise director who really, really wants you to find love, even if it means staring into mirrors until your eyes water. Her smile never fades. She might be immortal. She offers you a glass of punch. It glows faintly, like it has a plot. You accept politely, knowing it might contain brandy, sherry, or the dreams of her enemies. It tastes sweet, vaguely herbal, and slightly smoky. Someone mentions that the recipe involves oranges grown in a distant colony, and a rum smuggled through socially acceptable channels. You compliment her decor, because that's what one does. She beams. She explains that she spent weeks hanging garlands of dried flowers, marigolds to ward off spirits, rosemary for remembrance, lavender for peace, also because it matches the wallpaper. Function and fashion are the married couple Victorians always strive to be. Mid-conversation, a guest backs into a fragile vase. Time slows. Everyone inhales sharply. The vase wobbles, then miraculously stabilizes. The hostess smiles, but you sense she has mentally written the guest out of her will. He scurries away to hide behind a turnip lantern. She shows you to the ballroom, where couples gather, ready to participate in more romantic shenanigans. She whispers that her own courtship involved a game of nut burning that nearly set her cousin's hair alight. They married swiftly afterward, perhaps because nothing bonds people like nearly becoming a cautionary tale. Her eyes twinkle as she encourages you to participate. You can say no. She radiates the polite yet firm expectation that you will bob for apples, read your future in cake crumbs, and possibly marry a stranger by spring. You admire her commitment. Also, you fear her. Amid the festivities, she never stops moving, floating between groups like an elegant hummingbird fueled entirely by propriety and suppressed opinions. She exchanges pleasantries, monitors the servants, redirects gossip, and ensures that all romantic game conclude without injury or scandal. She's both hostess and security guard. You realize something. This night is her Olympics. She has trained for this. The social season is her marathon, and Halloween is her victory lap. Her reputation depends on flawless execution. If even one nut prediction goes awry, or someone's turnip lantern spontaneously combusts, she will bear the shame for decades. She is basically hosting the Super Bowl of politely forced romance. Eventually, she ushers everyone into the dining room for dessert, a cake studded with charms, each a tiny omen. Before you can decline, she places a slice onto your plate with such grace that you feel honored. You chew carefully, hoping to avoid breaking a tooth on destiny. You look at her smiling, shimmering aglow with the warm light of 6 dozen candles. She is strong, she is poised, she is dangerously flammable. Victorian hospitality is an art form, and she is the masterpiece. Queen Victoria herself is rumoured to have hosted Halloween gatherings, tasteful affairs involving fortune games, lavish food, and minimal spectral screaming. You imagine her politely bobbing for an apple, and somehow still looking regal while soaking wet. Of course, you wouldn't dare mention that mental image allowed royalty is mysterious, powerful, and famously not into slapstick humour. Still, you can to help but picture Her Majesty emerging from a bowl of water, hair immaculate, expression serene, an apple between her teeth, as if she'd planned it all. Because if anyone could make damp fruit catching into a royal art form, it would be Queen Victoria. Let's rewind a moment. Victorian Halloween was officially a state event with parades and fireworks. Instead, it slipped into the social calendar like a mischievous cousin sneaking in the back door. But thanks to the Queen's interest in reviving old British and Scottish traditions, especially during her long stays at Balmoral, Halloween got a subtle boost of royal approval. And when the Queen likes something, society follows. It's the 19th century equivalent of a celebrity influencer casually recommending an herbal tea. You imagine the palace rooms transformed for the night, lighted by endless rows of candles shimmering across polished floors. Household staff arrange garlands of dried flowers, seasonal fruits, and maybe even a discreetly carved turnip tucked near the hearth. No one would publicly acknowledge the turnip, but it's there. Mocking, glowing, probably wearing a tiny crown. Guests arrive dressed in their most fashionable attire. Subtle mourning ribbons here and there, because in Victorian England, mourning was a lifestyle, not a phase. Footmen whisk away shawls, and everyone pretends they aren't terrified of offending anyone who's ever met a duke. The atmosphere is a tasteful blend of anticipation and quiet panic, like the first 5 minutes of a modern holiday dinner when no one knows who will bring up politics first. The Queen enters, regal and poised. She's not here for nonsense, but she's absolutely here for tradition. She takes her place in the grand salon, surrounded by nobles trying not to look too eager about love fortunes. A fortune-telling game may occur, probably diluted into something dignified, like a court lady reading symbolic apple peelings, while maintaining the posture of a very fancy statue. Nobody splashes water. Nobody slips. It's all perfectly proper, perfectly polite, and ultimately just a little weird. The food, however, is spectacular. Plates of roast meats, sugared nuts, spiced cakes, and imported fruit fill the tables. There are cakes containing metal charms, tiny tokens predicting one's fate, though. In polite company, these charms are perhaps presented separately instead of hidden, inside things you can swallow. The royal dentist would appreciate that. Queen Victoria's parties weren't rages. They were orderly occasions where ghost stories might be told between courses, ideally by someone with a dramatic voice and an acceptable family tree. Maybe a Scottish servant recounts tales of spirits on the moors while nobles nod solemnly, pretending not to be absolutely terrified. Afterwards, everyone sips tea aggressively to calm down. The Queen herself enjoyed Scottish lore, especially the eerie stories from the Highlands. These traditions infused the Victorian imagination with bold ideas about spirits roaming on Halloween, the earth breathing a little differently that night, and ghosts who might pop in just to check on their favourite humans. This is why the Victorians became obsessed with seances later. Everyone wanted to chat with their great-aunt Mildred to ask about her scone recipe or unresolved family drama. At the Queen's Halloween functions, there is decorum, yes, but the slightest thrill always runs beneath it. A candle flickers a little, too violently. A draught swirls unexpectedly through the room. Somebody swears they heard footsteps from the empty hall. Another insists her candle flame bent toward her when she whispered her beloved's name. But, as is customary, everyone pretends it is perfectly normal. Politeness is the holy law. Imagine, if you will, the greatest spectacle of all, the Queen approving fortune-telling games. Apples becomes sacred objects, peeled with reverence. If the peel forms a letter, people try to keep a straight face while obviously deciding that scriggly lump definitely stands for someone named George. A bowl of hazelnuts might be placed near the fire, their popping taken as evidence that two shy nobles will soon marry. Court records do not confirm any of this, but history suggests that Victorians would gladly bet their social standing on nut forecasting, and should any guest glimpse the outline of a future lover in a mirror, they would report it in the most dignified terms possible. The vision was agreeable and remained at a respectful distance. No screaming, no fainting onto fainting couches, simply dignified clairvoyance. The night ends in quiet elegance. Servants clear plates, guests depart into the fog, and somewhere, a lonely turnip lantern burns itself out on a palace step carved badly, overlooked, but proud to have served. The Queen returns to her chambers, satisfied that tradition has been upheld, guests have been entertained, and the supernatural has been acknowledged just enough to be polite. And that is Queen Victoria's Halloween social stamp. Refined, superstitious, and entirely candlelit. Even destiny must behave itself in her presence. You're given roasted nuts. They taste pleasant, but these are not casual snacks. They are tools of destiny. Crack the right nut, and congratulations. Your marriage might work out. Crack the wrong one, and well, hope you enjoy spinsterhood. You stare at the small bowl in your hands. Almonds, hazelnuts, and perhaps a walnut that looks like it's seen too much. These are not party favours, these are prophecies. Somewhere, your modern brain is whispering, isn't it there a dating app for this? But here, love is judged by the combustibility of tree seeds. The Victorians adore symbolism, especially edible symbolism. Each nut represents a potential lover, a romantic outcome, or your future happiness. It is like a snack-based tarot deck, except stickier. You're supposed to assign each nut a name, imaginary or real, and then roast them, placing them near the fireplace or candle. If two nuts burn quietly together, it means bliss. If one jumps away dramatically, it means heartbreak. And if both explode, honestly, just stay single. You feel a small flare of panic. You didn't think describing your crush via hazelnut would be the most emotionally vulnerable moment of your life. But here we are. You pick up two hazelnuts, whispering names like the world's most timid sorcerer. One represents someone charming, the other someone who once complimented your handwriting, basically the Victorian version of flirting. You set the pair on a metal plate near the fire. Everyone watches. Everyone. Even the wallpaper seems to be paying attention. You suddenly understand why Victorians are emotionally constipated. They spend all their feelings on nuts. The first nut warms, then crackles. The second hops sideways, as though it has somewhere better to be. The room gasps. According to tradition, this means heartbreak, unfortunate but not surprising. Considering your crush bathes roughly once a fortnight, someone pats your shoulder with delicate pity, like you've just lost a beloved pet frog. Another guest tries the game. Her nuts roll together, touching gently like star-crossed lovers. Everyone sighs romantically. Someone quietly starts planning the wedding menu. There will be more nuts. A servant, clearly desensitized to all this, refills the nut bowls. He gives you a look that says, "Good luck with your future, I guess," and vanishes before you can ask how seriously he personally takes the ritual. Probably very seriously, or not at all. Hard to tell. His expression is unreadable, like a hazelnut oracle. You pop one roasted nut into your mouth. It is crunchy and warm and tastes faintly of commitment. Or ash. Hard to say. As you chew, you briefly forget this is a divination tool. Then you remember and panic. Did you just eat your future? Do you need to apologize to the nut? Do you need therapy? Absolutely. But it won't be invented for decades. Someone explains that this fortune-telling tradition comes from older Celtic customs when people believed that nuts held the power of prophecy. They were used to predict everything. Romance, wealth, health. Whether your cow would finally stop giving milk that smelled like despair. Nuts were the multi-tool of superstition. The room grows loud with crackling shells and whispered hopes. A group gathers near the hearth, laying out nuts like poker chips. Names are whispered. Arthur, Henry, William, Edgar. A nut jumps, a girl squeals, a boy looks devastated, and all of this is interpreted with the seriousness of a courtroom verdict. You can help comparing this to modern dating rituals. Today, we swipe on an app and hope the person S profile doesn't lie. In Victorian times, you set seeds on fire and hope they don't fling themselves across the room. A different process, same emotional chaos. Let's talk about the anxiety. Because these snacks, these tiny omens carry a weight. No snack should carry. One wrong crack, and suddenly you're the talk of the parlor. The tragic soul whose nut rejected them. People exchange sympathetic looks. Some give unsolicited advice. Perhaps peel an apple later. Mirrors are more accurate. Yes, nothing soothes heartbreak like more produce-based fate. The hostess encourages everyone to participate, smiling as though this is normal. She remembers her own wedding foretold by a pair of almonds who burned together without moving. Romantic, terrifying. You imagine her recounting the story to her children. Papa and I were destined. The nuts said so. The children nod, solemnly accepting the mysticism of legumes. At some point, someone produces candied nuts, a luxurious treat covered in sugar and, allegedly, free of omen. You grab a handful, comfort eating your way through existential dread. They are delicious and thankfully not on fire, but even the sweet nuts have symbolism. Sugared almonds are often given at weddings 5 to represent health, wealth, happiness, fertility, and longevity. You pause halfway through eating one and wonder if you have just consumed your fertility. Then decide it is fine, you are full. Another group tries a variation, naming nuts after themselves and their crush. If they pop together, they're destined. If they burst apart, they were not. Someone shrieks when hers leap apart like dramatic actors staging a breakup scene. The room nods gravely. Destiny has spoken. She begins reassigning names to new nuts. Denial is strong tradition allows infinite retries. Eventually, your emotional investment in the outcome of roasted snacks wanes. You realize the real purpose is not prophecy but connection. People laugh, tease, and tell stories. Everyone is both nervous and hopeful. These silly rituals offer a way to talk about love in a time when discussing feelings is considered impolite, almost scandalous. As the fire burns low, a final group attempts their fortune. Their nuts sit still, glowing quietly. Someone declares it a sign of everlasting love, or that the fire is too weak. Accuracy is shaky. The hostess claps brightly, thanking everyone for participating in the ancient art of nut divination. She calls it charming, you call it stressful, but you admit it's kind of fun, and it beats waiting for a letter from someone who takes 3 months to write hello. You set aside your last hazelnut, placing it in your pocket. A souvenir, a maybe, a tiny reminder that sometimes love is unpredictable and occasionally combustible. And if everything goes wrong, you can always become a professional cat collector. Someone brings out a cake filled with tiny metal charms. Eating dessert just became a choking hazard. If you get the thimble, you'll be single. If you get the ring, you'll wed. If you get nothing, you're probably full and mildly relieved. The cake in question is a dense, glorious tower of dried fruit, spices, and butter, something between the modern fruitcake your aunt forces on you at Christmas and a brick someone politely decorated. It's fragrant with nutmeg and cinnamon, and possibly despair. The Victorians love fruitcake. They pass it round like holy scripture, confident that raisins hold moral value. A finely dressed servant presents the cake on a silver tray, his expression a mix of reverence and mild concern because inside this confection lurk small metal tokens that predict your destiny or chip your teeth. These charms are wrapped in parchment or cloth so as not to poison you directly, which is comforting until you remember that health science is still deciding whether air is dangerous. Guests lean forward as slices are cut and distributed. You accept your piece with the same caution you apply to handling a sleeping baby or a feral raccoon. The cake looks innocent enough, just spongy fruit and sticky sweetness, but somewhere inside it lies your fate. You poke at it politely with your fork, as if hoping the charm will reveal itself without dental involvement. Around the table, the atmosphere shifts. Conversations pause. This is Victorian gambling at its peak. No cards, no dice, just suspense baked into dessert. People nibble with the careful precision of bomb technicians. A girl across from you bites down, pauses, then triumphantly retrieves a tiny metal ring from her mouth like a victorious magician. Everyone gasps. The ring means marriage, likely soon, possibly happy. Hopefully to someone with more money than phlegm. An older gentleman pulls out a tiny boot charm symbolizing travel or adventure. He looks thrilled, already planning trips to Wales, which is considered exotic and dangerous because of mountains and sheep. Someone else discovers a small coin promising wealth. The table murmurs with approval. They assume he'll be rich. You assume he'll find a nickel on the street. Your own slice remains ominously quiet. You take a bite. It is chewy, dense, and tastes like spiced history. You chew carefully, half expecting to break your molars on destiny, but nothing. You chew again, eyes flicking around, watching others discover their futures. Still nothing. You begin to wonder if your slice is broken, or worse, if your future is uneventful. Suddenly something, not metal exactly, more like a lump. You freeze. Everyone around you leans in. Dramatic tension builds. You bring your napkin to your lips, fishing around like a polite Victorian squirrel, and pull out a thimble. A collective gasp fills the room. The thimble is the symbol of spinsterhood, of a life without marriage, of solitary evenings spent sewing by candlelight while judging couples from afar. The Victorians nod solemnly. Someone pats your hand sympathetically, while another whispers that being single might be better than marrying the guy who coughs blood into lace handkerchiefs. You force a polite smile, trying to look honoured rather than doomed. A nearby girl giggles softly, making it clear she's thrilled it happened to someone else. You admire her honesty, or wish to fight her. Hard to say. The hostess chimes in reassuringly that fortunes are just for fun and not to be taken literally, which would feel more comforting if she weren't a sneaking side-eye at you, quietly confirming your fate. You tuck the thimble into your pocket, wondering if you should take up sewing or start naming cats. Let's talk symbolism. These charm cakes come from older British traditions tokens baked into plum puddings or cakes to predict the year ahead. It is a festive way to combine dessert and existential dread. Some charms foretell wealth, a coin, success, a button, future children, a tiny baby, or travel, a boot. Others, like your thimble, imply a future stitching emotional wounds together in peace and isolation. Still, charms aren't always clear. One guest finds a miniature horseshoe, which could mean luck or stepping in something unpleasant. Another finds an anchor, symbolizing stability, or perhaps being dragged down emotionally. Interpretation varies wildly. Each charm is just a suggestion, not a sentence. But Victorians excel at taking things too seriously, so this becomes the emotional event of the evening. As the cake is eaten, laughter grows. People share their charms, compare fates, and trade tokens like Pokemon. I'll give you my horseshoe for your coin, someone bargains. Only if you throw in your future happiness, comes the reply. Bartering destiny is very in this season. You finish your slice, still tasting cloves and bitter inevitability. Something warms in you, the realization that this entire ritual is delightfully ridiculous. Your future isn't bound to a pastry. At most, the charm is a conversation starter, an excuse to laugh, to tease, to flirt. It offers the illusion of certainty in a world where everything from health to love to basic plumbing is unpredictable. The servant clears empty plates, leaving crumbs and futures scattered across the table. Your thimble sits quietly in your palm. Its meaning is both unavoidable and absurd. You decide it simply means independence, freedom, and fewer laundry-related tragedies. The night moves on. Someone pulls out a ring and blushes. Another shows off a coin and gloats. But you, armed with your thimble, smile privately. Maybe love is still waiting. Or maybe you'll adopt a dozen cats and teach them tricks. Either way, the cake was delicious. The company was warm. And your future, whether single, married, or occasionally choking on pastries, remains delightfully your own. A suspiciously murky punch sloshes in a crystal bowl. You take a sip. It's like drinking fermented berry perfume with hints of shoe polish. Everyone claims it's delicious. They are lying. The punch bowl sits on a lace-covered table, shimmering ominously beneath candlelight. It looks elegant enough cut crystal, shining like it attends church twice a week, but inside lurks a liquid that could easily double as industrial cleaner. It's the colour of bruised grapes and questionable decisions. You watch as a footman ladles out cup after cup with the resigned expression of a man who has seen too much. Victorian punch is not a precise science. It is more like a chaotic collaboration between nostalgia, alcohol, and whatever fruit hasn't rotted yet. Recipes vary, but generally involve wine, brandy, citrus, and spices stewed together until it resembles something a wizard would drink before summoning an eldritch beast. In theory, it's delightful. In practice, it tastes like someone liquefied a fruitcake and added regret. Your hostess insists you try it. Victorians are very into communal beverages there, as something about everyone sharing the same bowl that says "weary family," while simultaneously sharing germs. You accept the cup because refusing would be a social crime, punishable by gossip and cold shoulders. You raise it to your nose. The scent hits first sweetness overpowering, with a sharp undercurrent of alcohol strong enough to remove wallpaper. Somewhere within the aroma is a note of spices, nutmeg, cinnamon, maybe clove, though these are mostly swallowed by the smell of whatever questionable liquid someone poured in for fortification. The Victorians don to measure. They feel the recipe in their heart, which explains a lot. The first sip is confusing. It's warm, unexpectedly warm, because it's been sitting too close to the fire. The flavour rolls across your tongue in waves. Fruity, sweet, fiery, then bam shoe polish, followed by cherry cough syrup. Then what you're pretty sure is sadness. You swallow, partly by reflex, partly because spitting would be unthinkable. A nearby guest beams at you, waiting for praise. You nod because lying is what good manners are made of. Another sip. This time, you brace yourself. It helps. A little. Traditionally, Victorian punch was meant to impress. A proper host was judged on their punch, much like today. Esser hosts are judged on charcuterie boards, or how many chargers they pretend to use under dinner plates. Punch bowls were status symbols, crystal or silver, often enormous. The kind of thing great-grandparents bought to justify not having central heating. Inside, a blend of spirits and fruit proclaimed your wealth, refinement, and questionable priorities. As you sip, you overhear a spirited debate about the ingredients. Someone claims there is port wine. Someone else insists there is gin. Another guest swears there's rum from Jamaica brought over by a cousin, who may or may not be a smuggler. Based on the taste, there is also shoe polish, regret, and possibly a lemon that died of old age. One well-meaning gentleman claims the recipe's medicinal. He says it's excellent for digestion, melancholy, and warding off colds. You look around, everyone is coughing. So maybe not. Victorians are fond of spiking their beverages with ample alcohol, sometimes because water can be unsafe, sometimes because life is emotionally taxing, and sometimes because it is a party and they don't have Netflix. The punch is strong enough to floor a sturdy ox, which probably explains why everyone looks so cheerful. Or dazed. Hard to tell. You notice a group of ladies sipping and whispering about whose apple peel resembled a heart, which boyfriend popped violently away during nut fortune time, and who is destined for travel. They giggle with that punch-fueled glow that makes everything seem funnier and fate less binding. One cup turns into two, which turns into let's tell ghost stories and summon our future husbands from beyond the veil. A young man at your elbow confesses he added extra brandy to the bowl, quoting some proverb about spirits bringing spirits. He thinks he is clever. He is not. But the punch's strength explains why the wallpaper looks like it's breathing. As the night gallops on, the punch bowl becomes the social center. Guests cluster around it, refilling cups, laughing louder, and forgetting that the drink tastes like something that could dissolve a corset. The hostess keeps an eye on consumption. Victorian propriety demands visible joy. Not chaos, but deep down. You know she's relying on the punch to keep spirits high and awkward flirtation flowing. Eventually, emboldened by liquid confidence, someone proposes a toast to love, luck, and not accidentally swallowing a charm in your cake. Cups clink, glugging merrily. You lift yours but hesitate. Do you dare another sip? You do. Because everyone else is. And because the room is starting to feel pleasantly fuzzy, like you are wrapped in a warm wool blanket stuffed with quotes from Shakespeare. The punch goes down easier this time, though it still tastes like perfume left out in the sun. You accept your fate. This is your life now. Sweets, spirits, and guessing whether you'll be blessed with wealth or die surrounded by turnips. By night's end, the bowl sits nearly empty, its last murky dregs swirling like a tiny whirlpool of poor decisions. The footman looks relieved. Guests are flushed, chatty, And slightly more romantic punch, after all, is stronger than hope. You put your empty cup aside, feeling that warm internal glow that says, this is either happiness or imminent stomach trouble. Either way, the bowl has done its job. Victorian love stories might begin with apples, nuts, or charms, but they were sealed with punch. Strong, mysterious punch that no one truly enjoys but no one refuses. Victorians adore whispers. Gossip and ghost tales are shared at a volume that suggests the wallpaper is listening. You lean in and hear that someone saw a spirit in the scullery. Or maybe it was just a broom. Hard to say. Everywhere you go, voices hover just below audible like a society-wide ASMR trend. Guests lean close, lips nearly brushing ears, as though delivering government secrets instead of recounting who dropped an apple during fortune-telling. Whispering is the era's favourite sport, outranking croquet, embroidery, and repressing emotions. It's thrilling, efficient, and most importantly polite. Shouting is for labourers and existential crises. Whispering is for indoor scandals. The drawing room is a hive of quiet buzz. Silk skirts swish. Gentlemen gesture with tiny dignified finger flicks. Everyone looks like they're auditioning to be the mysterious stranger in a gothic novel. You're pretty sure even the cat is whispering to the ficus. Lean too far away and you hear nothing. Lean too close and you are practically inside someone's bonnet. You try to strike the perfect distance near enough to catch words, far enough not to be accused of impropriety. A fine line. A dangerous sport. Olympic-level posture is required. You catch fragments. In the scullery, a figure near the stairs could have been a ghost, or the butler in a bedsheet. These snippets sound supernatural, but also like what happens when the laundry gets frisky. A woman near you insists she saw a shadowy presence drifting past the kitchen. Someone else swears it whispered her name. The group nods solemnly, then adds that it might have been the maid practicing her customer service voice. No one rules anything out. The Victorians love ghosts the way modern people love personality quizzes and expensive coffee. They are fascinated, spooked, and slightly smug about it. Halloween makes the veil between this world and the other side thin, which according to most guests means ghosts have excellent seasonal timing and RSVP politely. But not all whispers are about spirits. Some are about scandal gentle, muted scandal that usually involves who was seen walking with whom, who arrived late, or who has been spotted reading a novel too quickly. Big stuff. High stakes. A gentleman in a green waistcoat leans toward his friend and murmurs about Miss Abernathy's apple peel, forming a suspiciously straight line. The group reacts like she accidentally summoned the Archduke. The implications? Nobody knows. But they nod thoughtfully, as if straight apple peel spells doom. To engage, you try whispering too. It feels illicit, intimate, and slightly silly. You lean toward a woman in ruffles and say, "I think the punch tastes like soap." She gasps dramatically, then whispers back, "I thought so too, but didn't want to be exiled." You have made a lifelong friend. Part of the reason for all this hush is societal etiquette. Loudness is considered crude, a sign that your ancestors may have once milked goats instead of ordering others to do it. So everyone keeps their voices low and mysterious. Even jokes are whispered quiet, breathy, and somehow still aggressive. It doesn't help that Halloween brings out superstition. People are convinced that spirits linger, listening. Whispering feels safer, more respectful. After all, if ghosts are present, better to err on the side of caution. No one wants to insult a dead Victorian, they might come back for your thimble. But there's another reason. Victorian houses echo. Every cough, hiccup, and chair creak ricochets down hallways like a small musical performance. Secrets must be kept soft, Or they'll travel from the drawing room into the parlor, then to the servants' quarters, and finally into tomorrow's gossip headlines. Vicar's daughter confesses love for mystery man was actually a coat rack. As the whispers swirl, your imagination runs wild. Did someone actually see a ghost? Or are servants just exceptionally drafty tonight? One woman claims her hair was gently lifted by a phantom hand. Another thinks she heard her name whispered in the pantry. Investigation reveals an open window and a bored cat. Still, the whispers feel magical. They make the evening pulse with energy, like you're all performers in a play called We Are Calm But Terrified. You sense, oddly, that whispering pulls everyone together. It turns the grand house into a shared secret. If you speak loudly, the spell breaks. So you whisper and listen. You lean in again. A man with sideburns thicker than your future murmurs that the hostess once played a spirit in a Halloween play and forgot to tell anyone it was a play. A séance broke out. The butler fainted. He never lived it down. He now exclusively carries smelling salts. Someone nearby shares that the Queen herself whispers when she discusses spiritual matters as if gossiping with destiny. Everyone nods. If the monarch whispers, so must we. The house creaks old wood settling under candlelight. A draught slides through the room, fluttering lace cuffs. The whispers pause. Someone's candle flickers ominously. For a heartbeat, you swear you feel eyes on you. Then the moment passes. The whispers resume. You realize this soft murmur is the Victorian version of a group chat, everyone talking at once, sharing tidbits, making tiny drama. It's messy, soothing, and strangely homey. The wallpaper leans in. The chandelier listens. Even the turnip lanterns seem to be judging. And you whisper too, because here, secrets taste sweeter when spoken softly. There's a game where you peel an apple in a single strip and toss it over your shoulder to see the initials of your future spouse. Yours lands looking like the letter S or a snake or maybe a worm having a personal crisis. A servant hands you a paring knife and an apple, as though you're about to perform a delicate medical procedure. Everyone gathers around with eerie seriousness, ready to judge your dexterity and more critically your potential to attract a spouse. It's romantic, in a fruit-based, slightly threatening way. Victorians insist the peel must stay in one long, unbroken strip. Otherwise, the magic won't work and you'll die alone. They don't say that last part out loud, but you can hear it implied humming beneath the polite encouragements. The pressure mounts. Your hands are suddenly sweaty. The apple is slick, like it knows its destiny and resists. You begin to peel. The blade whispers through red skin, spiraling down in a ribbon of hope. Guests hold their breath. A woman behind you clutches her own pearls, uncertain if she's rooting for your love life or your dramatic failure. In Victorian society, the line between support and schadenfreude is thin and embroidered. The peel grows longer. Your concentration is laser sharp. You've never wanted anything more in your life except maybe indoor heating. A man whispers that the longer the peel, the more promising your romantic future. You nod solemnly, as though this makes sense. Then it happens. The strip breaks. A collective gasp. A few look away, pretending not to witness your doom. Someone pats your shoulder. You are comforted with the Victorian equivalent of Don T. Worry. Plenty of fish in the sea, except here the fish all have lung diseases and terrible dental hygiene. But the game must go on. You regroup, peel a second strip, and this time it remains gloriously whole longer than your last relationship, curling like an elegant ribbon of sugary destiny. Triumph! The crowd exhales. A girl claps softly like a Victorian seal. Now comes the moment of truth. You toss the peel over your shoulder It flops behind you onto the floor with all the grace of a damp sock. Everyone rushes to inspect it. The tension is thick enough to butter. At first glance, it sort of looks like an S, or maybe a question mark, or possibly a snake having an emotional breakdown after a stressful week. Someone suggests it might stand for Samuel. Another insists it is clearly Stephen. A third says it looks more like a cursive Q, probably indicating marriage to someone named Quentin, which feels unlikely because Quentin sounds like a man who collects lace and weeps in broom closets. Victorian interpretation is flexible. If the letter looks promising, everyone praises it. If it's confusing, they adjust reality accordingly. It looks like an S, which symbolizes soulmate, someone decides. Another adds, or it could be a serpent, which means transformation. The Victorians will not let your night be meaningless. They will make symbolism happen with the force of will, normally reserved for invading foreign countries. Someone else says it looks like nothing. You glare at them, because no one invites that kind of energy to a romance ritual. Apple peel fortune-telling, sometimes called the peel toss, comes from older Celtic practices where apples were linked to love and wisdom. Halloween, rooted in the ancient Samhain, was believed to be when spirits blurred borders and allowed glimpses of the future. Naturally, people used fruit to determine who they'd marry. Tarot cards were not trending yet, and the Victorians hadn't invented romantically vague Instagram quotes. As you stare at your peel squiggle, guests debate. A young lady explains that her own peel last year formed a perfect W, and now she is engaged to a gentleman named Harold. You aren't sure how that tracks. She says fate is mysterious. You think fate is bad at spelling. Someone else claims her sister once got a shape resembling the number 8, which obviously meant infinity, which obviously meant eternal love. She married a man who travels constantly, so they practically never see each other. Technically romantic. Technically. The hostess glides over, observing your peel as if evaluating modern art. She nods sagely and says, "Yes, definitely an S." She taps her chin. Perhaps Sebastian. Sebastian sounds handsome, mysterious, and allergic to sincerity. You approve. The hostess smiles knowingly. She has orchestrated dozens of courtships using nothing but fruit. You trust her. Nearby, others perform the ritual. One apple peel forms something that looks unmistakably like a fish. Everyone frowns, unsure how to interpret aquatic omens. A girl confidently declares that it means the participant will marry a fisherman. Another counters, perhaps the person will be the fisherman. A third suggests it's actually just a bad peel. They all whisper loudly. Someone else tosses a peel that curls into a perfect J. The room buzzes. Several eligible bachelors named James, Joseph, and John suddenly straighten their posture, casually adjusting their cravats like they were auditioning for fate. Even the servants watch, amused. They've seen this 1,000 times. Some quietly place bets and likely have better predictive accuracy than the apples. You look at your peel again. The more you stare, the more it looks like something. A letter, perhaps. A path. A snake doing yoga. You decide that S, good enough. Victorians would absolutely assign meaning to a knot in a fence post. An ambiguous apple peel is basically a divine telegram. In the end, this ritual isn't really about accuracy. It's about connection, hope, and laughing at the absurdity of building your romantic future on produce. It is a safe way to talk about feelings, futures, and the dream of affection in a society too polite to say, "I like you." You tuck the peel into your pocket as a keepsake because if nothing else, it smells nice. And who knows? Maybe S really does stand for someone. Outside, a bonfire crackles. Flames dance in the mist like frantic ballerinas auditioning for the afterlife. People throw nuts into the fire and interpret the pop. This is how you know if someone loves you. Therapy has not been invented. You step into the night air, which is somehow colder than before, like the outdoors has heard your secrets and disapproves. The fog hangs low, thick enough to make the moon look like it's wearing a lampshade. All around you, guests huddle near the blazing pyre, attempting to look spiritual while also trying not to incinerate their sleeves. The bonfire is the beating heart of Victorian Halloween, an ancient tradition inherited from Celtic Samhain. Back then, the fire was meant to protect villagers from wandering spirits. Now it's used to help figure out whether your crush might someday hold your hand. Human priorities evolve in mysterious ways. Sparks leap skyward, disappearing like tiny souls seeking validation. The air smells of wood smoke, damp grass, and faint panic. The flames illuminate faces, some hopeful, some terrified, many tipsy from the punch. You nestle closer, grateful for warmth and the slight chance of roasting your anxieties away. A group stands near the fire, clutching hazelnuts like holy relics. Each nut is assigned a name, usually of someone desirable or questionably interesting. The rules go like this: throw the nut into the flames. If it burns quietly, your relationship will be harmonious. If it pops or leaps away, love will end in dramatic disaster, probably after a minor disagreement about wallpaper. You watch as a young woman tosses 2 nuts into the fire, naming them after a suitor and herself. They sit still, glowing. She beams. This means they are destined, or at minimum that they burn at the same rate. Close enough. Next, a nervous lad tosses his own romantic nut. It immediately pops and flies out of the flames like a tiny cannonball attempting escape. The crowd gasps. Someone mutters, "Well, at least he still has his health." The boy nods solemnly, pretending he never liked her anyway. Everyone politely pretends to believe him. Your turn. You pick a nut smooth, slightly warm. You whisper a name, someone whose apple peel once vaguely resembled a vowel. You toss it into the fire. It twists, crackles, then gives a small hop like it's doing a curtsy. The group murmurs, "Mixed omen." Could mean love, could mean explosive end, could mean nothing. Welcome to Victorian dating. The fire continues its show, shifting colours from orange to white to that suspicious green that makes you wonder if someone threw in copper on purpose. The heat warms your face, but the fog behind you remains icy and full of whispers. Shadows dance at the edges of sight, whether human or otherwise is unclear, given the fog density. It could be a ghost or just a particularly assertive shrub. Someone begins telling ghost stories. Victorians love a spooky tale, especially ones involving long roads, wandering spirits, and ladies in white who probably need better nightwear. A woman claims her great-aunt once saw a phantom near a similar bonfire, a tall figure who spoke in riddles, and then vanished. Someone else says their cousin met his future wife after seeing her reflection in a puddle during Halloween. Everyone nods like this is normal. The firelight flickers on stiff collars and whalebone corsets. Embers drift like fireflies with a death wish. A man slightly drunk, fully confident, tosses 3 nuts at once, declaring he will marry whoever his nut stays. All 3 pop violently into the grass. The crowd laughs nervously. Destiny has rejected him entirely. He shrugs and goes to refill his punch. Historically, bonfires have been used as protective forces, symbolically burning away illness and misfortune. Animals were once driven between twin fires to keep them safe, like a flaming car wash for livestock. Tonight, though, the fire is for flirtation, hope, and occasional singeing of bangs. Tradition evolves. Someone throws dried herbs into the flames. Rosemary crackles, sage hisses. The smell is earthy, cleansing, vaguely soup-like. They say herbs help ward off malevolent spirits. They also make the bonfire smell like someone is cooking a mysterious Victorian stew. Honestly, comforting. The fog thickens. For a moment, the world feels suspended, like time has paused to watch. You sense why these rituals endure. They aren't just silly games. They give structure to uncertainty. They let people dream aloud in a society that frowns on overt emotion. In the quiet crackle of burning wood, it feels safe to wonder, to hope, to ask what if. A final nut hits the fire, pops sharply, and bounces into a lady's skirt. She yelps. Someone beats at the flames with a pumpkin-shaped cushion. Disaster is averted, dignity is not. People laugh softly, then return to whispering politely, because this is Victorian England and we do not dwell on chaos. Eventually the fire dims. Logs crumble into glowing coals. Guests draw their cloaks tight, preparing to go back inside where mirrors and punch await. The night air bites your nose. You watch embers fade into the fog like stars being tucked into bed. You linger for a moment, feeling warmth fade from your hands. The bonfire has spoken. The nuts have leapt or lain still. The future may still be unknown, but at least your heart is a little lighter and significantly smokier. You head back to the mansion, ready for whatever ridiculous fate Victorian Halloween has planned next. People gather and tell ghost stories that are mostly just cautionary tales about not marrying the wrong chimney sweep. You're pretty sure half the ghosts are manifestations of unresolved Victorian grief, and the other half are raccoons. You're ushered into a dim drawing room where every scrap of light comes from twitchy candles that look seconds away from setting the drapes ablaze. Someone has thrown a shawl over a gas lamp to set the mood, which feels less like ambience and more like a controlled burn. Chairs are arranged in a circle and people sit with their hands folded, eagerly bracing to be traumatized. The hostess clears her throat. It's time. The gossip has quieted, the punch has settled, and everyone is ready to terrify themselves with tales of cold corridors, spectral brides, and chimney sweeps who absolutely should not be trusted after sunset. You, already scared of turnip lanterns, brace for emotional impact. A lady in mauve begins. She tells of a sorrowful figure seen wandering her family estate, an ancestor who died of heartbreak, or possibly indigestion, but no one investigated because autopsies are awkward. This ghost allegedly appears each Halloween, weeping near the garden. Someone asks if the garden was where he died. She shakes her head. No, he just liked the roses. Fair enough. Her story has all the Victorian essentials: tragedy, mist, and a miscommunication about feelings. Everyone nods along, murmuring condolences for the dead man's emotional constipation. The woman finishes her tale with a dramatic gasp, and someone takes this moment to refill the punch. Next, a gentleman with intense sideburns begins his tale. He describes a phantom chimney sweep who roams rooftops, sweeping eternally. Sometimes he appears beside windows, staring wistfully inside. Once he whispered the word soot. The room shivers. Someone coughs into lace. Victorians are obsessed with chimney sweeps. Maybe because these small, sooty individuals wield the power to keep fires from consuming homes, or maybe because every romantic prospect in this era seems to be either a sickly poet or a soot-covered urchin. The lines blur. Another guest, pale, dramatic, recalls a cousin who once encountered a spirit at midnight. The ghost appeared in a hallway, wearing a nightgown and carrying a candle. The cousin fainted instantly. Later they learned it was only Aunt Millicent looking for snacks. But the story stuck, because Victorians never let the truth ruin a perfectly good haunting. You notice a theme. Many of these ghosts seem to be relatives who died of very normal things: tummy trouble, tripping on hems, not wearing enough shawls. But the living, starved for emotional outlets, turned them into supernatural icons. If you can say I missed them, you can at least say their sorrowful spirit haunts the west staircase. Someone tells a more sinister tale about a lady in white who appears near ponds. She drowned long ago, though no one knows why. Perhaps heartbreak, perhaps bad swimming skills. Every Victorian ghost either dies because of love, illness, or a suspiciously windy bridge. You listen closely, goosebumps rising. The tales are haunting, but also familiar. Grief wrapped in lace, sorrow softened by metaphor. Beneath the theatrics, you sense that ghost stories are how Victorians cope with loss. They turned sadness into something tangible that walks the halls and knocks on doors not because it wants to scare them, but because they never got a chance to say goodbye. A girl leans in to share her tale. She once saw glowing eyes in the scullery. Everyone gasps, but then she admits it might have been a raccoon. They gasp again more dramatically. Wildlife is apparently scarier than ghosts. The hostess says she's heard raccoons can foretell doom. This is incorrect, but nobody argues. At some point the stories blur together. A crying ghost near a window. A shadowy figure calling someone's name. A pale form that stole bread. You suspect at least 2 stories are about the same raccoon. There's a brief intermission during which people nibble biscuits and whisper, "Do you believe in spirits?" You nod because it seems polite. Also because the house is drafty, and you saw a shadow move that one time. When the circle regathers, the hostess shares a favourite, the story of a young bride who died on her wedding night. Now she returns every Halloween to search for her beloved. Someone asks why she doesn't just move on. The hostess sighs. It was true love, or codependency, hard to tell. The tale continues, and you notice the details sound suspiciously like the plot of a novel full of brooding husbands and secret attics. In the Victorian era, everything resembles a novel. Life imitates literature, which imitates life, which imitates melodrama. As the final story winds down, the room falls into reverent hush. Candles pop. The wallpaper seems to lean closer. Half of you wants to sleep. The other half wants to sprint to the nearest train station. And then, a sudden knock at the door. Everyone freezes. The music in your brain swells. The hostess rises, takes a breath. The door opens. It's just the maid. She brought more nuts. Everyone exhales. Some chuckle. Others pretend they were never afraid. Victorians love pretending they're not scared. The ghost circle breaks. People disperse, some to find more punch, others to hide behind furniture. You sit, reflecting on what you've learned. Ghosts are basically unresolved feelings in period clothing. Chimney sweeps are either romantic or terrifying, and raccoons are the real supernatural threat. You leave the room quieter, a little spooked, and very aware that this house holds more stories than anyone wants to unpack. And somewhere on a distant rooftop, a ghostly broom sweeps. Couples flirt very seriously, standing 3 feet apart, maintaining intense eye contact and occasionally touching gloves. You try this. It is alarmingly intimate. Someone swoons. The parlor is dim, lit by candles trying their best to be romantic instead of fire hazard with a dream. Shadows tremble along the wallpaper, ferns, cherubs, and a slightly judgmental owl that's painted to stare right into your soul. Conversations hush as the subtle sport of courtship begins. This isn't casual banter. It's social chess played with lace and side-eye. Victorian flirting is an art form more delicate than your last 3 attempts at assembling IKEA furniture. There's no touching, not really. Just layers of gazes, soft words, and an occasional glove-to-glove graze that sends sparks flying like you just plugged your heart into the wall socket. You step into the candle glow, suddenly aware of your posture, breath, and the fact that your sleeve is a little wrinkled. Scandalous. A woman in a glittering gown demonstrates. She glides toward a gentleman, stopping at the legally romantic distance of 3 feet. Any closer, and someone would need to alert the clergy. They exchange glances, long, lingering. He slightly inclines his head. She flutters her fan at a speed that could be mistaken for Morse code. You're certain she just transmitted her entire romantic history. Victorian flirting relies heavily on props. Fans, gloves, handkerchiefs. These are emotional vocabulary. A dropped glove can mean I care. A flicked fan can mean I might love you. A sneeze could indicate allergies or profound aching devotion. It's unclear. Victorians like it that way. Finally, you attempt the ritual. You spot someone across the room, a person with a respectable side part and a strong dedication to starch. You approach, careful not to brush against anyone or breathe too loudly. Candlelight hits your face, making you look mysteriously competent. Good start. You stop at the approved distance. The silence feels heavy, nearly romantic, but also like you're about to negotiate a land treaty. You make eye contact. Too much eye contact. You panic. You try a soft smile. They return it. A tingle travels up your spine. You both adjust your gloves, as if this is foreplay. You reach out, barely brushing fingertips. Electricity or static? Possibly both. Someone in the background makes a small, scandalized gasp. The hostess hovers, monitoring to ensure no one commits hand-holding without proper documentation. This is what passes for emotional intensity in Victorian England. Without saying a word, you've communicated, "You interest me. I might love you. Please don't faint." Someone does faint, but not your partner. A bystander, overcome by the sensual proximity, gracefully collapses onto a fainting couch, strategically placed for exactly this situation. They are revived with smelling salts and a lecture about moral fibre. The romance games continue. One couple shares a poem from a distance. Another trades compliments about each other's penmanship. One bold pair leans in just enough that their coat buttons nearly kiss. A gasp rolls through the crowd. Someone crosses themselves. Somewhere, 1,000 lace curtains tremble. You learn that courtship here is less about spontaneity and more about ritual. Every gesture has meaning. Every syllable is weighted. A compliment on someone's brooch may as well be a marriage proposal. Asking about their health is borderline scandalous, too intimate, too suggestive of shared futures and mutual survival. The room swirls with polite romance. Glances dart like fireflies. Fans brush cheeks with the intensity of emotional novels. The piano nearby plays a soft waltz, slow, sweet, slightly flat. Couples don to dance, yet they simply want to dance. In Victorian society, the wanting is the thrilling part. You overhear one gentleman murmur that he adores a lady's bonnet stitching. She blushes so deeply you fear she'll combust. Her chaperone coughs ominously, signaling that everyone needs to calm down before someone elopes. The rituals are so restrained that modern dating feels like a water park by comparison. Here, passion lives beneath 47 layers of etiquette, embroidery, and cardigans. But the longing? Oh, the longing is loud enough to hear through the plaster. You notice another pair exchanging lockets containing curls of hair. Victorian love language. Here, have some of my follicles. It's disturbingly sweet. You wonder if you should offer your crush a stray eyebrow hair. Probably not. As you linger, you start to understand the appeal. In this faint, flickering light, each tiny motion grows enormous. A glance becomes a confession. A touch becomes a pledge. Romance is small but powerful, like a teacup holding a thunderstorm. Eventually, someone announces a group game. The glove drop. Ladies accidentally drop gloves to see who retrieves them. The chosen participant is marked as potential soulmate material, or at least someone with working knees. A glove falls near you. You bend down, retrieve it, and return it with a bow so elegant you surprise yourself. The glover's owner smiles warm, patient. The room collectively sighs. Somewhere, destiny takes notes. Afterward you retreat, flushed and slightly overwhelmed. Candlelight makes everything dizzy and dreamlike soft edges, soft voices, soft feelings. Yes, the rules are bizarre. Yes, fainting is too common. But there is something lovely about connection built so gently. It's a slow, careful, hopeful like candle flames trying to touch. Close but never quite. Welcome to Victorian romance, where 3 feet apart is basically a marriage proposal. Kids knock on doors and request sweets. If denied, they commit mild property damage using cabbage. This is the Victorian version of trick-or-treating. A pumpkin-scented vengeance. You step outside after the candlelit courtship marathon, your heart fluttering, your gloves slightly sweaty, and immediately witness a child hurl a cabbage at someone's fence. It thuds with the wet splat of a vegetable that died for mischief. The boy squeals with delight, then scampers into the fog like a tiny delinquent bat. Nobody even chases him. Apparently this is normal. Victorian Halloween pranks were the ancestors of modern trick-or-treating, except instead of fun-sized Snickers, the children brandished turnips and leafy produce. If you answered the door with sweets, or a coin, or literally anything edible, the little goblins went on their merry way. If not, your cabbage-based reckoning was nigh. It's bizarre, a little chaotic, and honestly kind of admirable. The kids have a code, a system, and absolutely no upper body strength. You stand on a cobblestone lane smothered in autumn fog. The air smells like damp wool, coal smoke, and faint vegetable aggression. Small clusters of children in oversized shawls wander from house to house, each one clutching a lantern carved from, you guessed it, turnips. Their tiny gremlin faces glow from within the carved roots like souls trapped inside vegetables. Festive. Most households oblige. They hand out pastries, roasted nuts, and sometimes apples that have been polished so aggressively they could double as surveillance mirrors. The children accept with solemn, businesslike nods, as though closing a deal on agricultural futures. You watch as a group of kids approaches a fancy townhouse. They knock gently. The door opens. The footman offers them candied chestnuts. The kids squeal, bow, and bolt down the street like sugared squirrels. Easy, peaceful, mutual respect. Then they visit the next house. The owner cracks the door, blinks at them, and says he wants to hand out treats tonight. Possibly he doesn't believe in bribing small humans to avoid chaos. A noble stance and foolish. The children give him the Victorian equivalent of side-eye. Heads slightly tilted, mouths pursed, silent judgment hanging thicker than the smog in London. He closes the door firmly. The children exchange a look. The cabbage is summoned. They place the leafy projectile carefully, almost reverently, on the doorstep. Then, in a coordinated motion, they give it a shove. It rolls slowly, bumping the door with a dull thud. They nod, satisfied, then toddle away. Justice has been served vegetable style. You're slightly underwhelmed. Where's the drama? The smashed windows? Toilet paper flying through the air? But in Victorian society, subtlety is everything. A cabbage against your door is the Era S version of a strongly worded email. The message is clear. You could have given us candy, Harold. Still, not all pranks are so tame. You hear whispers of other classic Halloween mischief, moving gates, rearranging garden tools, leaving farm carts on rooftops. This sounds like a logistical nightmare requiring ladders, teamwork, and zero adult supervision. You can imagine any of the careful, fainting couch couponing Victorians handling such chaos, but the children? Oh, the children are built different. They are fueled by sugar, societal repression, and raw cabbage-fueled spite. A girl with a pink ribbon tugs your sleeve. She asks if you'd like to join. You panic, but nod. You follow the cabbage mafia. The next house is down a narrow lane, partially concealed by mist and hedges that look like they're judging you. The kids knock. No answer. They knock again. Still nothing. They exchange solemn glances, then produce a bag filled with nuts. One child carefully removes a walnut, winds up with the intensity of a professional pitcher, and flicks it at the window. It taps gently. This is not vandalism. It is passive-aggressive ballet. You ask if this is truly enough vengeance. A small boy answers, "We also stack turnips on their doorstep." Chilling. You watch as he does exactly that, creating a tiny vegetable cairn as a memorial to generosity never given. Somewhere nearby, another group is cackling. You follow the sound and find them engaged in a more advanced prank better described as light infrastructure sabotage. They are relocating a garden gate. They grunt and heave like miniature dock workers. You offer help. They refuse. "This is a children's affair," they say gravely. You wonder if they unionized. Once the gate is removed, they drag it 20 feet and lean it against a tree. That's it. That's the prank. In the morning, a man will try to leave his house and have the worst Monday ever. You are delighted. Across the village, lanterns flicker. Kids scamper. Somewhere, a cow moos, which could mean someone pranked it, or the cow is merely tired of this nonsense. Hard to say. You consider the origins. These pranks trace back to ancient Celtic practices, ritual mischief to confuse malevolent spirits by rearranging their surroundings. Victorians, however, repurposed that tradition to confuse neighbours instead. A slight upgrade. The night stretches on. You witness a trio of children politely untying a laundry line, draping undergarments across a hedge like avant-garde art. Another group pushes a wheelbarrow into a pond. It bobs like a sad metal duck. Everyone cheers softly. Nobody gets hurt. Nothing truly damaged. It's petty chaos, wholesome rebellion like prank light. And yet, beneath the laughs, you sense something tender. These antics are a release valve, a way for children, normally seen and not heard, to let off steam, claim space, and once a year turn the world just slightly upside down. Eventually things wind down. Kids yawn. Turnips dim. Cabbage artillery is depleted. They shuffle home with pockets full of sweets and hearts full of triumph. You trail behind, feeling oddly proud of this gentle uprising. You think of modern Halloween candy overload, plastic pumpkins, synthetic cobwebs, and smile. The Victorians didn't have Kit Kats or SpongeBob costumes. But they had turnips, they had cabbage, and most importantly they had each other. Because sometimes all you need for magic is a little mischief, a dark night, and a vegetable with an agenda. The mansion smells like burning coal, rose water, and existential dread. You inhale. It's surprisingly soothing. The scent hits you the moment you step inside, as if a Victorian chemist tried to bottle the concept of "we're doing our best." The coal smoke wafts from iron grates, clinging to your clothes like an overly affectionate cat. It's the background fragrance of the entire Industrial Revolution, and honestly, it's doing most of the atmospheric work. Where modern homes have plug-in diffusers, Victorians have air pollution. Charming. Layered over this smoky bass note is rosewater sweet, powdery and aggressively floral. Everyone is drenched in it. The hostess wears enough to stun a small horse. The gentlemen dab it behind their ears, trying to smell like they've never worked a day in their life. You breathe it in deeply and detect hints of overly steeped tea, unresolved childhood trauma, and cloves. Probably cloves. Victorians tossed cloves into everything like it was glitter. Somewhere beneath the floral haze lurks a third, subtler note. Fear, not loud, Screaming fear more like quiet, well-bred anxiety. It smells faintly of damp wool, unpaid debts, and the constant pressure of living in a society where touching someone's glove could send you directly into an arranged marriage. Call it eau de panic. You move deeper into the house. The heat from the coal stoves roasts your face, while cold drafts snake in at ankle height. It is the era S idea of central heating. A toaster up front and a meat locker in the back. The smell changes depending on where you stand. By the fireplace, cozy briquette inferno near the corridor, damp stone and the slight scent of someone hiding strong feelings behind embroidery. Passing through the ballroom, the perfume intensifies. Victorians perfume everything: clothes, handkerchiefs, letters, small pets. If it can absorb scent, it will smell like a botanical garden that lost a fight with a chemistry set. You detect rose, lavender, bergamot, and something suspiciously like gin. Maybe it is the punch, maybe it is someone's hair tonic. Hard to say. Every now and then, other scents slip through. Beeswax from candle stubs, turnip lanterns slightly toasted, perfumed gloves, which after all this flirting smell like hopeful palms and societal repression. You catch a whiff of pumpkin too, but that could just be someone's anxious gourd sweats. Victorian Halloween makes everyone shiny. Servants glide past you, trailing laundry starch and soap. Their world smells simpler: hard work, boiled fabric, practical shoes. You nod respectfully. They nod back, careful not to make eye contact too long. It might lead to conversation, which could lead to feelings, which Victorian law strictly prohibits. In the dining room, the scent shifts again. Coal, perfume and food, sweet cakes, roasted nuts, apples bobbing in water that smells aggressively like whatever soap was cheapest. You breathe in deep. The combination is oddly comforting, like being hugged by someone wearing too much cologne while a stove belches smoke behind them. A universal family holiday vibe, and then it hits. Underneath everything is a faint, tangy note fear. Not terror exactly, more like deep, persistent tension. The Victorians are scared of everything: ghosts, reputations, poor dental outlooks. They live in quiet dread of dying of something completely preventable, like a stiff breeze or their own corset. The fear hangs in the air, cut lightly with rose. You settle into a corner chair, trying to acclimate to the olfactory chaos. The longer you sit, the more the scents stack in your brain like oddly chosen roommates. It becomes strangely pleasant, like walking into a bakery that also sells coal and sad poetry. It's warm, nostalgic, vaguely concerning. Maybe that's the real magic of Victorian Halloween. Sensory immersion. The fire crackles. The rose water clings to your skin. The twinge of dread keeps you alert and humble. It's the kind of smell that makes you feel alive, then worried for feeling alive, then grateful you haven't accidentally married someone by touching their glove. Someone near you sighs, releasing a puff of perfume and coal and lamentation. You breathe it in, letting it swirl with the scents already clinging to your memory. Coal, perfume, fear. A perfect fragrance for a night when the veil thins. Ghosts gossip, and love might be hiding inside a nut. Honestly, you'd buy the candle. A local wise woman arrives, selling fortunes and herbal charms. Her predictions sound vague but encouraging. You buy 3 because you love an emotionally supportive accessory. She appears through the fog like a travelling moonbeam cloak trailing behind her, hair tucked up under a knitted cap that has seen more harsh winters than most of the guests have had strong opinions. The crowd parts, equal parts reverent and nosy. This is the village wise woman, here to dispense fate, comfort, and possibly homemade cough syrup that could stun a horse. Her basket is overflowing with charms, bundles of herbs tied with twine. tiny hand-painted tokens, and pouches filled with substances that look like they were stolen from the apothecaries do not use unless desperate shelf. They smell of sage, lavender, and something spicy enough to qualify as self-defense. Victorians adore her kind. When your doctor prescribes leeches and your priest prescribes prayer, sometimes you just want someone who says, "Here's a rosemary bundle, hang it over your bed, drink water, and don't talk to your ex." She smiles knowingly at you, as if you've just confessed your entire romantic history by the way you hold your elbows. She lays out her wares on a small wooden table. Guests swoop in like fashionable crows. You hover close. Each item promises protection, or love, or at minimum a pleasant scent important, since most of the party smells like coal and unresolved emotions. You pick up a tiny charm shaped like a teacup. She says, "This helps you let go." Let go of what? She does not specify. You buy it immediately. Her fortunes come next. She offers readings by candlelight, gazing into reflective bowls filled with water and herbs. The water ripples faintly either because of spirits or someone walking too heavily upstairs. She peers, squints, and delivers pronouncements that would make a modern horoscope writer weep with jealousy. You will soon meet someone who is not who they appear to be. Everyone nods vigorously because that could mean anything. Your path will twist, but joy waits at the end. You hope the twist is metaphorical and not about the apple peel you're still carrying in your pocket. She tells a nervous young lady that love is near but delayed. The girl looks relieved. Delayed love still counts as love. Another guest is told they will take a journey before the year's end. They panic because travel means trains, and trains mean risk of encountering strangers, fog, and questionable sandwiches. When she turns to you, the room hushes. She studies your face with eyes that feel older than any empire. She takes your hand, gloved obviously because we're not animals, and traces a line across your palm. She nods, muttering something about heart lines and destiny, though you're fairly certain she is actually just counting your fingers. "You are searching," she says. You nod. That feels correct. You are searching for love, for meaning, for decent central heating. She continues, "What you seek will find you, though not in the way you expect. This is either profound or deeply unhelpful. Still is comforting. She could tell you your fate involves being trampled by a rogue pumpkin cart, and you still sigh dreamily. She hands you a charm wrapped in cloth. It is warm, probably just from her hands, but still. "Burn this on the new moon," she murmurs. "Make a wish." You nod solemnly, vowing to Google new moon schedule Victorian edition later. Around you, others eagerly buy charms for everything: luck, marriage, protection, remembering to moisturize, avoiding moths. Some collect bundles of mint and time-practical herbs for warding off evil spirits and seasoning whatever dreadful meal is being boiled at home. One man clutches a charm meant to ensure fidelity. He plans to give it to his fiancée, who is currently flirting 3 feet away with a different gentleman as gloves. The wise woman watches and says nothing. She does not do refunds. Despite her mystical aura, she is grounded. Her advice is gentle, realistic. She tells one guest to drink more fresh water and another to spend time outdoors, which is wise even in 2025. She warns someone to avoid damp basements. Solid rule, supernatural or not. A skeptical gentleman asks how her charms work. She shrugs. "Faith helps," she says. He nods, unsure if this is philosophy or salesmanship. Probably both. Eventually your arms are weighted down with purchases. A charm for clarity. A charm for restful sleep. A charm for not crying over people you met 15 minutes ago. You are spiritually armed. The wise woman packs her basket. Guests whisper that she lives in a cottage beyond the village, Surrounded by herbs, cats, and an alarming number of jars, she leaves as silently as she came, cloak trailing, hair catching moonlight, feet barely making a sound on the gravel. For a moment, she looks like a ghost herself, or a very determined gardener. As she disappears into the fog, the air feels different, softer. Your pocket full of charms warms your heart, or maybe that's just body heat and cozy delusion. Either way, the night feels brighter. Victorian Halloween is full of games and pranks and punch that taste like shoe polish. But this moment with the wise woman feels ancient, like a thread connecting you to ancestors who stared at bonfires and hoped the universe was listening. You head back toward the mansion. Your charms clink softly. Your future is uncertain but warmly scented. Approaching midnight, the atmosphere thickens. People stand solemnly, awaiting signs from beyond. A dog barks. Everyone gasps. As the clock creeps toward 12, the entire house seems to hold its breath. Candle flames shrink and stretch like they're nervous too. Even the wallpaper feels tense, its floral patterns bunching up as though preparing for whatever may emerge from the veil between worlds. Conversation softens, laughter dies down, and everyone tries to look spiritually prepared, even if what they were really feeling is gas-induced heartburn from charm-stuffed cake. The hostess ushers guests onto the lawn, where the fog has become so heavy it is basically soup. You could ladle it. You might. Nobody would question it. This is a night of mysteries. People scatter across the grass, positioning themselves like pious lawn ornaments. The moon trickles through cloud cover, giving everything that's silvery we may or may not be haunted glow. Someone says this is the hour when spirits can cross over, when glimpses of dead relatives or future lovers are most likely to occur. This is very exciting, but also confusing, because you're not sure if you'd rather meet your soulmate or your great-aunt Mildred. Depends on the vibes. Probably soulmate. Victorians take this moment extremely seriously. They straighten collars, adjust cloaks, and stand in reverent silence. You try to look respectful, but your foot keeps sinking into muddy grass. You pretend this is part of a spiritual grounding ritual and hope no one notices. Then a dog barks in the distance. A single, loud bark. Everyone jumps like they've just been slapped by destiny. Someone shrieks. Another person makes the sign of the cross, except they get the order wrong and accidentally invent a new religious gesture. The mistress of the house whispers, "A sign." No one is sure what the sign means, but it definitely means something. Most Victorian hauntings begin with an ambiguous sound, creaks, sighs, a dog making normal dog noises. But tonight, every sound is loaded with cosmic meaning. A twig snaps. A man gasps. A breeze tickles your ear. You apologize to someone thinking they whispered to you. They weren't talking. Now you are worried a ghost just flirted with you. Victorian dating is complicated enough. The wise woman who sold you charms earlier has reappeared at the edge of the crowd, looking like she knows things she will not explain. She raises a hand and murmurs that the boundary thins. This could mean the spiritual veil, or possibly some nearby property line. Hard to say, but everyone nods solemnly. A young couple clings to each other, though carefully space for the Holy Ghost and any uninvited Victorian ones. A gentleman polishes his spectacles, convinced that seeing clearly will help him recognize the supernatural. Meanwhile, a child hides behind a turnip lantern, which provides no protection whatsoever but is adorable. Just then, a cold wind rushes across the lawn. It flips hems, flickers, candles, and gives everyone a dramatic shiver. This is excellent for the mood. Several people interpret it as the spirits acknowledging their presence. One woman insists her late husband always brought a breeze when he entered a room. Someone privately suspects her late husband just left windows open a lot, but they say nothing. You watch as a lady in pearls stares into the darkness, claiming she sees a faint glow in the distance. Everyone peers. The glow gets brighter. The people gasp again. It's a lantern, held by a farmhand. He's confused by the crowd and their silent panic. "Evening," he says. The group sighs in disappointment. No ghost, just a man doing his job. The farmhand shrugs and wanders off. The dog barks again. Chaos resumes. Still, people persist. Midnight is prime spirit time according to folklore. Loved ones will make their presence known through whispers, touches, or small signs, so everyone stands very still, listening, hoping, anxious. You close your eyes and let the night wrap around you. The fog curls, brushing your skin like cold fingers. Your heartbeat slows. Somewhere, a distant church bell tolls. 1, 2, 3. When it reaches 12, the crowd holds its breath. A collective inhale of possibility, then nothing, just silence. Deep, quiet, unsettling silence. It stretches so long you consider coughing to break the tension, but before you do, a low hoot echoes from a nearby tree. An owl, nature's jump scare. The entire party spins like a startled flock of geese. Someone swoons into the grass. Another claims the owl spoke in riddles. The wise woman confirms that owls are keepers of secrets, which is vague enough to be true or false or marketing. And then something happens. You feel it first. A subtle shift in the air, like the atmosphere just exhaled. The fog brightens ever so slightly, as if lit from within. You open your eyes to see small sparks drifting upward from the smouldering bonfire embers, each ember glowing like a tiny soul floating free. People whisper, "Spirits." Someone cries quietly. Someone else takes careful notes. It might be your imagination. It might be smoke. It might be something more. But no one wants to disrupt the moment. So everyone simply watches still, reverent, hopeful. Eventually the glow fades. The embers cool. The fog returns to simple fog, no longer cosmic or meaningful. The veil, if it ever did thin, thickens again. Someone declares the vigil a success. Others nod, satisfied. Whether anyone actually saw something is irrelevant. What matters is the feeling, the shared hush, the wonder, the belief that maybe, just maybe, something larger brushed past you in the dark. As midnight settles into early morning, people drift back inside, softer, quieter, changed. The dog barks a final time, probably at a squirrel. No one gasps this time. You follow the crowd, heart warm despite the cold. The vigil offered no answers, only the possibility of answers, which is enough. Sometimes the mystery is the message. Something taps the window, likely wind, possibly ghost, maybe just a confused goose. Everyone screams quietly. You've barely crossed the threshold back into the mansion when it happens. Tap, tap, tap. 3 soft knocks on the tall window panes. Conversation halts mid-sentence. Someone drops a nut. Another person chokes on rose-scented air. A distant piano note hangs unresolved, like the soundtrack of mild but stylish terror. The knocking continues slow, deliberate, and far too polite for a Victorian ghost, who would normally prefer rattling chains or whispering your full name in your ear at 3 a.m. This almost feels like a delivery, as if the afterlife uses the window as a backdoor for Amazon Prime. Everyone turns toward the sound in perfect unison like a flock of socially anxious flamingos. A gentleman adjusts his spectacles. A lady clutches her locket. You clutch your charms, hoping at least one is specifically labeled anti-goose. The hostess raises a candle. The flame flickers nervously as if preparing its will. Shadows jump across floral wallpaper, turning every vine into a potential monster. You inch forward, aware that the proper Victorian response to danger is to look at it, scream internally, then make tea. The tapping grows slightly louder, still not aggressive, but impatient. Perhaps the supernatural has somewhere else to be. Or maybe the confused goose does. A man near you whispers, "It's a spirit," with the confidence of someone who has never once been correct. Another insists it is the wind. A third, trembling, mutters that it might be the ghost of his ex-fiancée, who swore she'd return. Everyone nods gravely, pretending there's a normal thing to say. A brave soul, the local vicar steps closer to the window. He clears his throat, reciting a prayer just in case. The room leans in, forming a tension so thick you could butter it and serve it with jam. He gently pulls back the curtain and reveals nothing. Just dense fog, pressed up against the glass like a nosy neighbour. The darkness feels almost sentient, but maybe that's just coal particles having an existential crisis. The vicar squints. The guests hold their breath. You try to appear brave, though your knees have filed a complaint. Then, thunk, something bumps directly against the pane, blotting out the candles for a split second. The entire party gasps in one unified inhale, like a choir of very frightened teapots. The maid nearly faints. The vicar whimpers. Somewhere, someone whispers, "I knew I should have bought the stronger charm." And then, through the fog, a face emerges. Not a human face, not a ghost face, a goose, a very confused goose. It stares, eyes cold, beak fogging the glass with tiny goose ghost breath. It honks the sound, muffled, eerie, like a saxophone solo played from inside a closet. The room erupts. People scream but quietly, because screaming loudly is gauche. A lady clutches her pearls so tightly they nearly pop off. The hostess faints, landing, gracefully like she practiced. The vicar yelps and stumbles back, crossing himself again, still wrong, but yes, doing his best. The goose honks again, offended by the overreaction. It knocks once more on the pane, as if requesting entry or complaining about the punch. Someone shakily declares, "It is a sign." No one knows of what. But all signs are important tonight, even when feathery. A gentleman suggests the goose could be a familiar spirit here to warn them. Another claims geese have long been symbols of love. Someone else argues they symbolize chaos. You decide geese simply symbolize geese. The wise woman steps forward, sighing the deep sigh of someone accustomed to human nonsense. She peers at the goose. "He seeks bread," she says calmly. Everyone nods as if she just channeled ancient prophecy. A servant rushes off and returns with a piece of stale cake. He offers it through a cracked window. The goose snatches it, honks in satisfaction, and waddles away its silhouette, dissolving into fog like a feathery spirit who got what it came for. Silence follows. The guests stare at the window, unsure whether to resume gossip or change their entire worldview. Eventually, the hostess, revived via smelling salts and sheer stubbornness, declares that the visitation was blessed. Or, at the very least, educational. People begin whispering interpretations. The goose was a messenger from the beyond. The goose was the beyond. The goose was actually Mr. Whitby's escaped farm bird, who always knocks when hungry. All are equally valid in the Victorians' eyes. The room exhales as if the mansion itself were holding tension between its beams. Someone suggests more punch. Someone else suggests less. Both suggestions are ignored. You take one last look at the fog-draped window. Somewhere outside, the goose honks again, faint, distant, triumphant. You wonder if its ancestors once crossed veils too, or if it's just roaming around looking for more carbs. Either way, the thrill lingers. The night continues just a little stranger, a little funnier, a little more haunted by poultry. And everyone agrees. Nothing brings mortals together like a good midnight goose. Someone looks into the mirror and faints. They claim they saw themselves married to their least favourite cousin. Everyone agrees this is a traumatic omen. The room is still buzzing from the goose incident when a new shriek slices through the air, soft, tasteful, very Victorian. A young woman has collapsed dramatically in front of a full-length mirror. Her crinoline poofs upward like a startled pastry. Partygoers rush over, because fainting is the closest thing this century has to streaming entertainment. A small crowd gathers around her. She sits up, eyes wide, forehead glistening with either fear or punch-induced perspiration. She clutches her chest and whispers that she saw her own reflection standing beside her least favourite cousin, holding a bouquet of wilted violets. The cousin in question is present and trying his best to look flattered, but his best is not very good. He adjusts his too-tight collar and offers a nervous wave, which only makes her gag. To be clear, cousin weddings weren't unheard of in the Victorian era, but marrying your least favourite cousin? That's a fate too dark for anyone. Even the wise woman winces. Everyone starts talking over each other like frightened pigeons. One says the mirror must be cursed. Another insists the cousin is cursed. A third claims everyone is cursed and asks if anyone else would like to join her in the pantry for quiet sobbing. You consider it. The pantry has snacks. The hostess, still emotionally unstable from the goose visitation, tries to smooth things over. Maybe it was just the candlelight, she offers soothingly. The fainted girl shakes her head violently like a bobblehead possessed. No, she whispers. He was smiling. That does it. The room gasps. A smiling cousin? Impossible. He looks offended, which only confirms to everyone that marrying him would be a nightmare scenario, an omen worse than death, spinach in teeth, or running out of embroidery thread. The wise woman approaches the mirror cautiously because someone has to and squints at it like she's determining if it's as haunted or just smudged. After a silent beat, she declares, "The fortune is unclear. That's Victorian, for I have no clue what that was, but I am not taking legal responsibility." To calm the crowd, someone suggests repeating the ritual, because there is nothing humans love more than recreating a traumatic event to see if it gets worse. The fainted girl shrieks, "No!" Clutching her brooch like a holy relic, she says she'd rather be single forever, or take vows as a nun dedicated to avoiding both mirrors and cousins. Everyone respects this. Still, curiosity claws at you. So you follow a small procession of brave souls to the mirror. Wax drips down the candles placed nearby, and the air feels thick like someone spilled soup, but emotionally. You catch your own reflection in the glass. Pale face, anxious eyes, layered clothing that makes you look like a haunted onion. No cousin. You exhale slowly. Victory. A man peers in next. After 10 seconds, he nods thoughtfully. "I saw myself," he says, holding a sausage. The room goes silent. Does this mean I will marry one? People decide that if goose omens are valid, sausage omens might be too. The wise woman considers and shrugs. It means nourishment awaits. Close enough. Another woman looks into the mirror and claims she saw nothing at all. This causes chaos because nothing is somehow more suspicious than anything. A debate erupts about whether nothing signifies eternal loneliness, spiritual purity, or that she was simply standing too far to the left. Meanwhile, the cousin poor fellow tries to convince everyone that he is not a bad omen. He insists the mirror must be faulty. He even poses next to it, attempting to look appealing. Unfortunately, his face has two expressions: confused and slightly more confused. Nobody is convinced. One adventurous gentleman offers to smash the mirror and free the girl from the prophecy. Victorians are dramatic, but even they know smashing mirrors invites 7 years of bad luck, and more importantly a sharp mess. The hostess forbids it, citing rugs she can't afford to replace. Eventually, the wise woman recommends a cleansing ritual. Wave a burning sprig of rosemary around the mirror while chanting affirmations like, "Not the cousin, not the cousin." It seems to help. The fainted girl regains her colour. The cousin slowly melts back into the wallpaper, hoping to never be perceived again. As the panic dies, people begin to reinterpret the event in more forgiving ways. The mirror was dusty. The candle flickered. The cousiness face is vaguely haunting on a good day. The fainted girl announces she feels better. She declares she will never look into a mirror on Halloween again, which is fair. Nobody challenges this. The mirror is covered with a shawl, partly for symbolism and partly so no one has to see themselves sweat. Whispers spread that the fortune may have changed, that seeing it once might have broken the inevitability. This is Victorian logic. Stare at your horrifying future, faint dramatically, and you might magically prevent it. Honestly, it's not the worst plan. By the end of the crisis, the only lasting damage is emotional. The cousin avoids eye contact with everyone for the rest of the night. The mirror sulks under its shawl. The wise woman pockets extra coins for her services, and the fainted girl becomes a minor celebrity proof that sometimes a bad omen is just a socially awkward relative photo-bombing your destiny. You decide that if the universe ever shows you your future spouse, you hope it is someone who smiles less, or at least isn't related to you. Welcome to Victorian Halloween, where the only thing scarier than ghosts is family. Once the games end, guests whisper about who saw what, who nearly drowned bobbing for apples, and who might never find love. It is like a live-action group chat. The official festivities may be winding down, but the real entertainment is only just beginning, the sacred Victorian tradition of gossip. The fire crackles low, candles sputter like they're listening in, and you find yourself drifting into a cluster of guests armed with teacups and judgment. Here, conversation is a sport, and the points are measured in raised eyebrows and subtle shade. First on the docket, apple-bobbing casualties. Someone recounts, in scandalized whispers, that young Mr. Penworthy inhaled half the basin and emerged sputtering like a traumatized dolphin. His hair is still dripping. He claims his apple slipped, but everyone knows he panicked when it looked like the apple was flirting with someone else. Victorians take signs very seriously. A woman fans herself dramatically, insisting that she nearly drowned during her turn because her corset shifted. Another nods sympathetically but quietly wonders if she simply misjudged the angle of her face. Meanwhile, two teenagers brag that they managed to snag apples without touching the water, which is either impossible or witchcraft. Everyone is too polite to ask which. The conversation slides seamlessly into fortune-telling outcomes. A pale young man claims he glimpsed the shadow of his future wife holding a goose. Suddenly, this party has a recurring poultry theme, and no one knows how to feel about it. People debate whether the goose signifies domestic bliss or foul doom. The wise woman quietly pockets another handful of coins. You sip lukewarm punch and listen. A group nearby is analysing the mirror incident girl with the cousin vision. They agree it was heartbreaking but also great theatre. Someone suggests she might avoid her destiny by moving to Wales. Another says she must eat exactly 3 apples at dawn for 7 days. No one knows where that rule came from, but it sounds ancient, which is good enough. A pair of older ladies, seasoned gossip warriors, huddle with a confidence that implies they have seen things. They critique the Knight S flirting, who stared too long, who stared not long enough, who adjusted gloves too suggestively. Too much finger, one whispers, as though that's a terrifying concept. You vow never to adjust gloves again. The conversation then hops to who looked the most marriageable. Apparently one man scored high because of his strong posture and quiet desperation. Another was dismissed entirely after he sneezed on a candle and nearly set his sleeve on fire. Fire-related mishaps are charming in stories but not in dating. Someone brings up the goose knock on the window. Everyone reacts like it was a major spiritual event. People describe it with such seriousness that you almost forget it was just a hungry bird. One man insists the goose honked in perfect iambic pentameter. Another retorts that it was clearly trochaic. You don't know what either means, so you nod, looking profound. A butler passes with a tray of nuts. People accept them absent-mindedly while dissecting each other's psychological profiles. Someone whispers that cracking a quiet nut means fulfilling romance. Someone else hisses that too many nuts means eternal confusion. You wonder who makes these rules and whether they ever considered therapy. Someone leans in and whispers that Queen Victoria once bobbed for apples. The others gasp quietly, like children hearing a bedtime story. You picture the Queen's crown dipping into the basin, diamonds catching sunlight as she emerges victorious. This vision fuels another 10 minutes of royal hypotheticals. Then comes the big one. Who will never find love? The verdict is delivered gently, but still names are named. A shy girl, too timid to even look into the mirror. A bashful gentleman who brought his mother's recipe book just in case. And someone who passed out before midnight entirely due to overeating cake charms. People murmur condolences, though secretly relieved not to be among the doomed. More guests drift into the circle, eager to contribute fresh stories. Someone heard odd footsteps upstairs. Someone else swears a ghost pinched their bottom. No one questions this. In fact, they rate the ghost S technique. The gossip isn't a malicious well. Not entirely. It's communal storytelling, bonding over shared strangeness and mutual terror that destiny might arrive any second wearing a mustache and a bad attitude. It's comforting in a way. No matter what bizarre fortune you just endured, someone else had it worse. Or wetter. Eventually the crowd thins. People wander home through the fog, whispering new tales before the night can swallow them. You realize this is how legends form, not through documentation, but through caffeinated commentary and polite scandal. As silence returns, you glance around the dim parlor. There's a hum still in the air, like the walls are continuing the conversation without you. You touch your own damp hair from bobbing, your charm-filled cake pocket, your slightly cursed soul. You've earned your place in the gossip chain now, because Victorian Halloween isn't just about fortunes or ghosts. It's about what people say after the lights dim, the shared absurdity, the communal wonder, and the gentle thrill of knowing your destiny might be ridiculous. You step into the foggy night. Turnip lanterns flicker. You swear something follows you, but it might just be your shadow or a very clingy cat. The party dribbles to a close sometime after midnight, though time feels suspiciously elastic when you've spent the evening bobbing for apples, whispering to mirrors, and negotiating spiritual bread with a goose. You step outside, the door clicking shut behind you like a polite farewell, or an ominous reminder that you are now entirely alone with your life choices. A cold hush settles over the street. Fog rolls across the cobblestones in thick curls, hugging your ankles like a toddler with abandonment issues. The only light comes from the occasional turnip lantern, their grimacing little faces flickering in a way that suggests they absolutely know too much. They flicker judgmentally. You pull your shawl tighter. Your footsteps sound impossibly loud. Each tap echoes like someone following a half second behind you. You stop. The echo stops. You walk again. The echo resumes. Either there's a spirit matching your pace, or your shoes are accidentally sentient. You decide not to investigate. Somewhere overhead, a crow caws a sound that translates to, "Nice charm cake you ate. Hope you like unresolved anxiety." The breeze smells of peat smoke and mild panic. The houses on either side loom tall and shadowy, their windows dark except for a handful still flickering with candlelight. Inside, people likely gossip about their fortunes, Pretending they are not terrified of accidentally marrying their least favourite cousin, a small shape darts across your path. You freeze, pulse thundering like Victorian idling horsepower. Then you spot it. A cat. A perfectly ordinary, coal-dusted, possibly no secrets cat. It pauses, stares at you with glowing eyes, then begins to follow you at a casual but committed distance, like it's your hired security. Its tail flicks. It meows judgmentally. Maybe it knows your fortune. Maybe it just wants snacks. The fog grows thicker the farther you walk from the mansion. The turnip lanterns become fewer, their weak candlelight swallowed by the mist. In the distance, you think you hear faint laughter, just a soft ribbon of sound floating on the air. It might be the party, or ghosts, or both. Ghosts need social lives too. The road slopes gently downward, leading you past hedges that rustle occasionally, not quite enough to alarm, just enough to suggest that the shrubbery is aware of your presence and not thrilled about it. You quicken your pace, pretending it yes because you're eager for bed and not because you're moderately afraid of plants. You pass a gate. It creaks. The cat hisses at it, which confirms your suspicion that the gate is likely haunted. You whisper encouragement to the cat you're a team now. The cat ignores you, as all cats do, then rolls dramatically in the dirt for fun. A faint glow appears ahead. Not a lantern more shapeless, a slouching blob of light. Your first thought, ghost. Your second thought, goose, ghost. You exhale slowly, ready to accept that poultry may haunt you forever. As the light approaches, your heart throbs in your throat until you see it's just a watchman carrying a lantern. He nods at you, as though trailing fog creatures and mystical birds is part of his nightly route. Evening, he mutters. His lantern swings, scattering shadows like nervous children. You consider asking him to walk you home, but your pride insists you are brave. Plus, social interaction is exhausting when you've spent your evening interpreting nuts, so you continue. The cat trots along, occasionally sprinting ahead and then looking back like it is judging your slow pace. Shadows slide across the stone's branches waving, smoke drifting, the lingering ghosts of your dignity after bobbing for apples. You shift your shawl again, more for emotional comfort than warmth. Suddenly you hear footsteps, not your own, real ones. You pause. The fog ahead wavers, shapes moving like sleepwalking silhouettes. You squint. Two figures emerge, a courting couple, hands clasped, completely ignoring the spooky ambience. They walk past you, whispering sweet nothings about glove fabrics and proper posture. Ah, yes, love, Victorian style. Terrifying. As they disappear into the fog, you feel oddly reassured. If PDA, polite distance affection, can thrive tonight, you'll probably survive too. You turn a corner. Finally, your modest lodgings come into view, a dim cottage with a candle burning in the window. Safety. Blessed, unhaunted safety. Probably. You hurry toward it, mentally thanking the wise woman for your charms, the watchman for existing, and the cat for its emotional support even though the cat vanished 10 minutes ago. You slip inside, latch the door and lean against it. Silence. Just the crackle of the dying fire and your heartbeat slowing. You're alone at last. Then scritch, scritch, scritch. A soft scratching at your door. You freeze. Your spine tries to climb out of your body. Slowly you creep to the window, lift the curtain and see the cat. Just the cat. Sitting smugly, as if daring you to doubt its commitment. You open the door. It strolls in like it owns the place. Maybe it does. The fog rolls away, the night settles, and the last turnip lantern flickers out. You are safe. For now. Finally home, you crawl into bed under a mountain of blankets. You listen to the quiet crackle of the hearth, reflect on your questionable fortune, and fall asleep wondering whether you'll meet your future love or just keep buying charms from that wise woman. Your cottage is blissfully small, just big enough for you. Your anxieties, and the cat who has now claimed squatter's rights on your best chair. You kick off shoes that feel forged from lead. Your feet sigh. The room smells faintly of coal, damp wool, and the dubious perfume you borrowed from a friend who swore it would attract romance. Instead, it smells like rose water crossed with emotional baggage. A few embers still glow in the hearth. You toss on another lump of coal, and it crackles politely, as if thanking you for the opportunity to vibrate and perish. Warmth spreads, soft and slow, seeping into your bones like sighs. Victorian heating systems aren't known for excellence, so you accept any warmth like it as a rare gift from the gods or the upstairs landlord, who is basically the same. You peel off your outer layers, shawl, cloak, scarf, mystery ribbon, emergency scarf, second cloak. It is like unpacking a matryoshka doll, but with fewer bright colours and more questionable stains. Beneath it all, you're still wearing your moral code stiff, uncomfortable, and never quite fitting right. You hang everything over a rickety wooden chair to air out. It immediately collapses. The cat looks at you disapprovingly. You wash up Victorian style, a quick splash of cold water from the basin, which feels like being slapped by a glacier. Your face wakes all the way up, too awake for bedtime, but you pretend this is soothing. You catch your reflection in a tiny mirror, cheeks flushed, hair mildly haunted, eyes still processing the goose. You nod to yourself like, yes, same. Eventually you plunge into bed, really plunge, because the blankets are more mountain than bedding. They smell like lavender, old wood, and something faintly ghost-adjacent. You can tell if that's comforting or troubling, so you decide it is charming. Victorians would approve. Outside, fog slides past your window like a nosy neighbour. The turnip lantern you brought home flickers on your bedside table, its carved expression looking both protective and mildly resentful, like it didn't sign up for overtime. The cat hops onto the bed, circles 3 times, then lands squarely on your shins, becoming a furry paperweight. Cats in all eras are the same. You sink deeper into blankets, letting your mind replay the evening, every strange moment, every questionable omen. The apple bobbing, where you almost drowned in love or just water. The mirror gazing, where you saw mostly your own face silently judging your life choices. The wise woman selling charms that promised love but probably warded off nothing except common sense. The goose knocking on the window like an Amazon package gone feral. The midnight vigil where spirits may or may not have passed by, but definitely gave everyone something to gossip about. And of course, the fortune-telling panic seeing who might marry, who might be cursed, and who might end up embroidering alone forever. You think about your own fortune, which remained vague at best. One charm hinted you might find love, another suggested trouble, a third was just a tiny fork. You still don't know what that one means, but it's adorable, so you kept it. You stare at the ceiling and consider your romantic prospects. Maybe you'll meet someone who smells better than coal dust. Someone who doesn't bob for apples with the desperation of a drowning man. Someone whose fortune doesn't involve a goose. Or maybe you'll just keep buying charms from the wise woman until your bedroom looks like a spiritual gift shop. Honestly, either path feels valid. The hearth pops. The cat purrs a deep, vibrating rumble that sounds suspiciously like contentment or maybe judgment. You let the warmth settle over you. Even the cold patches at the edges of the mattress feel friendly, like they were saying, hey, it could be worse, you could still be outside. Your eyelids grow heavy. The faint sounds of the night slip into a soft lullaby. The wind brushing against the window, a horse clomping somewhere far away. two drunken Victorians loudly debating whether fortune games are proper science. The fog presses at the glass but stays politely outside. You curl onto your side, nestling further into warmth. Your thoughts drift like slow-turning pages. Will you meet your true love at next year's Halloween party? Will you discover that the cat has spiritual significance? Will the wise woman offer a loyalty card? Who knows? For now, you're safe. The ghost stories, spooky omens, and matchmaking chaos are miles behind you. Your bed is soft. Your fire is gentle. Your cat is smug. The world is cold and strange, but here, under this heap of blankets, life feels cozy. Your breath slows. The room settles. Sleep finds you quiet, curious, hopeful, still wondering what the future holds, and whether the goose knows more than it let on. And so, here you are safe, warm, and very much not bobbing for apples under social pressure. Congratulations on surviving Victorian Halloween with most of your dignity intact despite the punch that tasted like regret, the mirror that flirted with your cousin, and a goose who demanded emotional labour at your window. Tonight you learned that the Victorians faced life with an odd blend of superstition, repressed emotions, and impressive wool-based fashion. They carved turnips because pumpkins were too fancy, told fortunes because therapy hadn't been invented, and flirted by staring intensely from across the room like a silent movie no one asked to watch. You endured freezing night air, matchmaking chaos, and charms hidden inside dessert. You learned to fear bonfires that predict your love life, and to respect cats who escort you home like tiny furry bodyguards. You stood beneath fog-soaked skies at midnight, holding your breath while waiting for spirits who may have been nothing more than over-caffeinated imagination. And yet somehow, it all felt profound. Maybe you didn't find your future spouse tonight. Maybe your fortune pointed toward eternal singledom and a hobby collecting decorative forks. But you also laughed, whispered, wondered, and most importantly made it to bed without marrying your least favourite cousin. In this era, that counts as a major win. So as you settle beneath modern blankets, blessedly free of turnip fumes, take a moment to feel grateful. You have electricity. You have heating that doesn't require risking your eyebrows. You have love that doesn't depend on apple peel calligraphy. And if your house is quiet now, let it feel peaceful. The ghosts have better things to do. The goose has moved on, and the wise woman is probably asleep, dreaming of selling you more charms tomorrow. Rest easy, friend. History is messy, hilarious, and full of strange traditions, but it's also proof that people are stubborn, hopeful, and always searching for a little magic in the dark. Good night.